They sell it like it's breaking through, but it all feels slightly used. Different faces, different sides, same old script they're running live. You scroll it down, you feel the weight, like you've seen this play before. Today it's not the noise, it's how it flows, like something underneath it knows. Same story, new name, different fire, same flame. You can feel it when it hits, like it's already been written. This isn't chaos on the screen, it's a pattern in between. You don't need them to explain, you can see it's the same story, new name. Every angle, every frame, every outlet sounds the same. They divide it, draw the lines, keep you locked in real time. But the cracks are getting loud, you can see it in the crowd. Something's shifting out of view, and it's pulling you through. It's not a theory, it's not a guess, it's the shape inside the mess. Same story, new name, different fire, same flame. You can feel it when it hits, like it's already been written. This isn't chaos on the screen, it's a pattern in between. You don't need them to explain, you can see it's the same story, new name. They don't hide it, they just move it. Shift the language, repackage, prove it. You were never meant to trace the line, but now you see it every time. Same story, new name, different mask, same game. Now you feel it in your bones, every signal, every tone. This isn't chaos on the screen, it's a system running deep. You don't need them to explain, you can see it's the same story, new name. It's not random, you're just finally seeing it.
Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there,
How dare you!
all guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want!
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
If knowledge is a crime, we were guilty from the start. They don't fear the questions, they fear the spark. So we steal the fire, not to rule, not to reign, just to see through smoke and mirrors and call the beast by name. They call it dangerous thinking, they call it heresy. But fire doesn't fear the dark, it only shows what's real.
Hey guys, what is happening and what is up? Hey, hold out that glass, man, because you know what time it is. We are about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I am your host, Doc Brown, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus lens to take a second look at everything. Hey, if you are new to this channel, welcome to the hero's journey. Please, please, please be sure and hit that like button.
Hee-haw,
Don't be a
hee-haw.
jackass. Hit that subscribe button. Hey, if you like this show, man, that's your free way of contributing and pushing us into the faces of new listeners, man. So that is much, much appreciated. Nobody likes a jackass, so don't be a jackass.
Hee-haw,
Hit that like button.
hee-haw.
Well, man, guys, got another one lined up for you. I'm kind of getting into the groove a little bit to this live stuff. This is, I think, the first one that I've started that didn't have an audio issue or something. So we're off to a good start. We're learning as we go. So I've been trying to do at least, one or two of these a week. So far, so good, getting the reps in. And I thank you guys for being patient and tuning in. But got a returning guest for you guys today. Man, we got Mr. Seth Kicklighter coming back, and this is going to be, I think it's our third session, and we're going to get into reincarnation. And I'm sure this all plugs into his book, The Spirit World Shenanigans. But I love to sit down and talk with this man. He's a well-researched guy. He's a funny dude. He's just enjoyable to be around, man. So I'd like to welcome back Seth to the show. Seth, thank you so much for coming back, bro.
Thank you, my man. I'm excited. I'm on this non-stop worldwide tour, and I'm honored to be here.
Nice. Yeah. The Forrest Gump way. Jenny!
That's right.
Well, man, just in case somebody is new to this show or just happen to be, doom scrolling on YouTube and happen to just see this really cool thumbnail, like, oh, Debunking Reincarnation, what is this? So maybe if those people don't know who you are, man, just introduce yourself and give everybody a little bit of a feel of who you are, what you do, and the subject matter of today, because this is something that is in your new book, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I am a schizo on the internet. You can find my book, Spirit Realm Shenanigans and Unhinged Rant, Exposing the Psychic Fabrications of Discarnate Dweebs and Nephilim Nitwits, on Amazon. On my Linktree has everything you need if you want to find any of my podcast interviews. I collect them all there in playlists, clips, shortened versions of my podcast info. My full audiobook is free, all 34 hours. It's got funny voices for all the characters I'm using. But it's nonfiction, of course. Yeah, that's right. And I have all my, what else am I missing? Yeah, everything's on my Linktree, and my Linktree is linktree.com/Sethlehem, Bethlehem with a Seth, and my X is Sethlehem. My Instagram is Sethlehem_. If you want to find my Linktree, it's in my bio of those accounts. And, reach out to me if you have any questions. I try to be good and respond to most people. Yeah, this is part 3 material, and I highly recommend anybody watching now who hasn't seen episode 1 or 2. That lays the groundwork for what we're getting into today, and it's already leaving you assumed at the beginning of this that you have an understanding somewhat of the part 1 especially material, and a little bit of part 2 wouldn't hurt, because it is the groundwork for what we're talking about today, which is reincarnation debunk, in a way that I have not seen anybody else do. I'm pretty confident in my research, because it's mainly taking my main theory, which is covered in episode 1, is the whole idea of the astral realm that we visit. I'm not saying there's no astral realm or spirit realm. I'm just saying that we visit in our travels, quote unquote, when we project. I believe that is pretty much all simulation. If we're going to realm specifically, there's a whole semantic deviation about the real-time zone, our real-world overlay, but that's a whole unnecessary semantic thing but just putting it out there. But as far as realms go that we visit, I believe they're all simulations, essentially lucid dreams controlled by entities, and you can assume those entities are guides, which they claim to be, or ascended masters of various kinds, and they different names for the same thing. But if you have a Christian worldview, you go the more demonic route, and they're all masking and deceiving you. And the whole point of these realms that they're building up, and when I say control, I mean, and you see in episode 1, because I prove the level of control with their own testimonies of the astral travelers themselves and what they say, it is from their own mouth. I prove that the control is so deep that it's not only everything world building around you visually, which is already deeply, deeply, perfectly controlled, all the characters in it, all the dialogue they share with you, but it's also your intuition that they're jacked into, because just like they can manipulate our thoughts in the waking world, whenever you give up your sovereignty in the astral realm, you're giving up your sovereignty to be manipulated and controlled. They can make you feel love, feel really good. They can make you feel scared. They can control your lucidity levels and make them dimmer and lower or more aware if they want to, and they will strategically to manipulate you. And the whole point of these realms they take you to is to convince you of a cosmology that is completely unaligned with the biblical cosmology, which is, they're demons trying to deceive you into a false belief system. Because if you believe in a false cosmology, you will not believe in the Bible or Jesus, or at least in the biblical Jesus, as opposed to the more Gnostic one, which is not doesn't suffice according to the Bible itself. So it's a dangerous unified mission. And this, I make the point that this astral realm control is so perfect. Doing this same level of information funneling and control of visions also easily applies to remote viewing, which is just like a lower CPU requiring form of astral travel. It's the same mechanism, just less immersive. So it's much easier than even astral travel control, which, just making that point because it's important. They'll give you real data, but usually to make you believe the fake data they give you later. So it's a whole strategic thing that they're timing very well. And this also, and today what we're talking about, applies to reincarnation memories, which is what I believe to be downloaded, implanted, full-blown memories, which come along with a download of information alongside it. And, they talk about downloads in the astral lore very easily, which they admit to being able to transfer to anybody to get a full picture of what's happening. And those downloads can not only be information and understanding a lot of information in a instant amount of time, but it's also can be transferring you to a simulation which you live out. And it can be have autonomy, no autonomy. They control all these things, and when you have autonomy, you're still pushed around and intuitively guided. So it's very much you're putting in their hands in these divination seeking occult practices, especially astral travel, and all of them. I believe every single psychic information deriving that you do is going to be funneled and powered completely by these entities. And watch episodes 1 and 2 if you don't believe me. 2 was more breaking down the whole Dan Duval debacle and his healing methods, which are so correlated, so in line with New Age healing practices in every way, except they deviate in ways that can't coexist. They're incompatible. Watch episode 2 if you don't believe me. But they all have a common theme of having visions during the healings, which validate the strategic displacing of pain or ailments that they're causing you, which demons will heal you, allow you to think you're healed temporarily often, unless you're an asset, to make you believe that whatever cosmology is coming along with the visions. And Christians will do this, quote unquote, like Dan Duval, and these will still expand your cosmology to a non-biblical one, but they'll try to Christianese it and label things a certain way. But it's a bridge to Gnostic concepts. Everything they talk about, Galactic Federation, Anunnaki, alternate timelines, alternate Earths, that is all Dan Duval derived stuff as well, and he promotes the secret space program as legitimate. Today we're going to talk about all the false memory implantations there are and how disinformation is embedded in them, not just reincarnation memories, but how this also applies to secret space program memories, Water Kingdom memories, if you're aware of how crazy that stuff gets. Even my labs, which that's controversial. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that one probably, but just hear me out in the entire 3 presentations, please. That's my little summary rant. If anybody was curious, it's important. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And even your last episode that we had done was kind of a little bit of a trigger and hot button topic. We even had some people in the chat live that was fans of Dan Duval and was kind of giving you a little bit of pushback, and even had some stuff on social media. But I had one individual that was obviously, I don't know the person, but just by how they kept responding and writing these really long novel responses and stuff, it was an emotional topic. And granted, we all get emotional, especially if it's something we're involved with. If we go see somebody and they make us feel better, of course we're gonna be all about them because they made us feel better. But just because they made you feel better doesn't mean they're a good person.
You can always trust your feelings, right?
Exactly. And even in the Old Testament, I get people all the time would tell me sometimes, like, I get so frustrated when I see how God moved and the Israelites seen the plagues come upon Egypt and all of the miraculous things he done, took them through the Red Sea for them to make a golden calf and start, rejecting him and serving other gods. And I'm like, well, yeah, because it was real. These other, lowercase g gods, they have power. And there's a payoff to sacrificing your children and things like that, or else no one would do it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard sometimes to look at something objectively, especially when you're emotionally involved. And I'm sure a lot of those people in the ancient world that sacrificed their child, to help them win a war or whatever else, will vouch all day long how this God done
Bring the
something
rain.
good for them.
Yeah, man. And people don't understand that these deceptions that are being played out by the demonic realm are strategic from advanced, ancient, hive-minded beings that have a plan, and it requires looking like the nice guy on paper to a lot of people. And I like to bring up, like I talked about in episode 1, whenever these astral beings, guides, or demons, whoever they are, present themselves to you, which they're always there, but they're invisible a lot of the time and want you to think you're alone, but you're never alone in the astral. Keep in mind. They can make you feel love, make you feel really good, and make it feel like it's in your like soul. Like they can trigger that and affect your emotions. They can do that in our waking life to a degree with entity encounters as well, and strategically time those good feelings at the wrong times, maybe depending on who you are and what the advantage is for them. But when you meet angels in the Bible, when real angels in the Bible encounter people, what do they always say? They say, do not be afraid, or something of that nature. All of them, I believe. And you know why? Because they're not jacking into you, even though they can, just like demons, they can jack into you and control your emotions and manipulate you. They won't, because that's manipulation. And that's important to keep in mind, that they let you come to this conclusion on your own based on the information, as opposed to making you feel good, which they're totally capable of doing. I think that's important, because just because it makes you feel good, if anything, that should be a sign that maybe it's someone trying to manipulate you. Not always, but when it comes to these entity encounters, it is a pattern that is undeniably present, and I just think people should keep that in mind, because feeling good can be a strategically timed thing from the spiritual realm to get you to buy into the slop they're feeding you, is something I like to point out.
Yeah, 100%. So, I guess with that out of the way, man, everybody put on your emotional seatbelts. Let's be good Bereans. Let's hear the man out, and then we can search the scriptures and see if it is so, right?
Let's go. Yeah, man, so it's going to be another long one, if you don't mind, like the last few. I got a lot of lore here. Let me know when we're like, in the last 15, 20 minutes, I'll go on my crazy rant. But it's going to get really heated up near the end and really elaborate, so bear with me. So first, I guess I want to do I already did the overall overview of the last 2 episodes, but I want to make a quick pointer about things that we've established, and which I'll just quickly go over, and things that, we're starting out with this baseline information in mind, because it's going to apply quickly into my theories. So yeah, basically what we've established in part 1 that I believe to be a fact, based on all the data, and it's more detailed in my book. These beings, these demons, if that's what they are part of a hive mind. They can instantly share information to all their entities. They are separate entities. However many demons died in the flood, or how many Nephilim died in the flood, or how many demons we have afflicting us today. That's what I believe. That's based on the biblical lore and a little bit extra biblical, sure. But yeah, it's that I believe they're part of a hive mind, and that's how they commit themselves to these grandiose, elaborate deceptions on a unified way across the whole world. And even whenever they're sharing, like channeling or entity contact, giving different information to different people, it's not because they're messing up and because they're like, oh, I didn't forget, or I forgot what the other guy said to this person, so they're getting their story mixed up. No, they're intentionally, strategically giving a vast array of details in these various belief systems. It's the same reason they created it's the same reason they created many religions through people deceiving them, as opposed to creating one counter religion, Christianity, because one, it makes Christianity look like a drop in the bucket of a big, set of belief systems, making it less important seeming on the surface to people who aren't cross-examining every little thing. And also, it's strategically done because it allows people will gravitate. They know people. They know us better than us. They know people will gravitate towards what makes sense to them, what's around their culture, what's around their families. They know majority of people will not cross-examine these things. So they strategically diverge the material they channel to people, which is a clear source that, they're different beings. They can't be the same beings, because why would they give us all these different stories and all these different historical accounts that don't align with each other? It's strategy. So they seem like they're not one type of being doing this. That's what I personally believe based on all the data. Yeah, that's right. So they're a hive mind that can share information instantly, and this is how they carry out prophecies and stuff. Like with mediums, they'll tell a medium, they'll feed them downloaded information to prophesy to you, and not only when you believe that prophecy is possible, your belief, your desire acts as a level of consent to be given to these entities, so that they can now work in your life to fulfill these prophecies more.
I think
I like
power
to
too, Seth. Because Jesus
Yeah.
talked about in the Bible. So many times he told the people, your faith has made you well. So just their
Exactly.
belief in it is like, the opposite of loosh is good energy.
Absolutely. But if you're putting your belief in the wrong thing, you're empowering the negative beings, which and that's why the Bible talks about not doing these practices, divination of any kind. Just because they get some hits occasionally, which they get more misses than hits, doesn't mean that they have ability to see the future, and they want you to believe they can see the future. Part 4, if we get there, is a time travel debunk, but that's a whole other conversation. We're getting there. But yeah, so they're a hive mind. They can share information instantly to all their entities. That's what I believe. That's important here for how they carry this out. They have a data collection. They're an etheric AI, essentially, where they can collect data. They are data collectors just like our phones, but they can collect our thoughts and our memories and all the actions they witness as part of their data. So if you have access to everybody's thoughts and memories, except I think Holy Spirit protected people have some degree or very strong degree of protection, and I have my reasons for that we don't need to get into today. But if they, and I'm saying they can access all our thoughts and memories, one, because it just makes sense with how they carry these things out, and what they've been known to influence our minds already. Of course, they can probably read them as well as write onto them, but also because in the Astral lore in episode 1, these guides admit to their human context, they admit that they can access all our thoughts and memories. It's the Akashic records, but it's no big deal. It's just an invasion of privacy, but we're all connected to source. What does it matter? So they admit that they have that ability, but if they're not guides, they're demons, and if they're admitting this, they're kind of showing their cards a little bit too much, and that goes a long way. Consent law is also something that most people understand for the most part. The more you sin, the more you do divination, the more you do whatever to open doors to God's standard, not your standard of sin, is the more you are giving consents to be influenced and also affected and inflicted in your life by these entities to guide you. And the last thing is the vision control and downloads. Like we talked about that already, the summary of episode 1 and 2. They have this vision control, which applies to astral travel, remote viewing, the holistic healing visions, which are essentially remote viewing. It's the same thing, regression based. This is a hypnotic regression where you go into a trance state, have a third eye type vision, which is what we're covering a lot today in the regression context, not till probably the second hour, but we will cover quite a bit of that and show the patterns that are happening. So that's all stuff people need to understand before I lay out my theory, which I'll do in just a minute, and then we'll get into the evidence afterwards. So first, I like to start out talking about because we're going to be talking about the children first, reincarnation cases and Ian Stevenson work, which Ian Stevenson is the top world's leading reincarnation researcher and data compiler, and, well-intentioned man, I'm sure. But he has 2,500 cases in his data banks, and a lot of those, a few hundred at least, he visited himself in person and would meet the families of the child who's claiming to have reincarnation memories. Always, maximum they're 6 years old, usually 2 to 4, 2 to 5 at that age, and that's important. We'll get into in a minute. And he doesn't take regression like memories because he thinks, one, adults can lie and children can't lie to these degrees, and I don't believe these kids are lying, but also he just thinks kids are a more pure way to get this information, as weird as that might sound. And I agree with him overall. The evidence in his cases are much stronger than the evidence for reincarnation in regression cases, much stronger. So that's what we're going to attack first. But I do want to say that people don't talk about this layer, and I think this is very important, that the brainwave state a child is in from different ages actually changes automatically as you age. And I'm being very general when I say this, so it's not exact to the exact day, but overall, this is summarized accurately. 0 to 2-year-olds in that, baby state are in the delta brainwave state. Okay, so they are that is 0.5 to 3.54 hertz, pretty much constantly, which is like a waking, sleeping state. Now, 2 to 6-year-olds, which is the age group that exclusively all of these childhood past life memories are coming from in Ian Stevenson's work. Internet told me 100% of them. It might be a little bit outside of that, but 100% of them, according to the internet and my research here, has said that of Ian Stevenson's cases are between 2 and 6 years old. Now, between 2 and 6 years old, you are specifically in a theta brainwave state most of the waking hours. A theta brainwave state is 4 to 8 hertz. That theta brainwave state is exactly the brainwave state you need to be in to do astral projection, deep meditations, channeling entities, remote viewing, any of these divination practices that lead to entity contact or supernatural abilities all take place in the theta brainwave state, which these 2 to 6 year olds are pretty much always in for most of their waking hours.
That's crazy.
As a baseline. It is
'Cause
crazy.
me-
No one
me
talks
and
about
Amy
that.
Was just talking the other day. He was on a road trip, and we talk about all kinds of different stuff. But we got on the subject of ghosts and how it seems like children and or dogs
They see
are
them way
always
more,
the
huh?
ones that see them, and it's like I wonder if it's maybe just like a state of innocence or something like that. You've not been corrupted by, different teachings and theology, and but it seems like a pattern you can notice.
Yep, and it
how
goes
you got
away
the
after
idea.
these years pass in their early,
Yeah.
like before they're a teenager, always before puberty or whatever it is.
Jesus
I
said
think
to inherit the kingdom of heaven, you had to be like one of these small children, like the faith of a child, and
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's an interesting correlation there, and I'll just finish by saying that 6 to 12-year-olds after that theta brainwave state are typically in mostly alpha brainwave states, and then 12 to 18 plus is going into alpha and mostly beta brainwave states. Your consciousness is quote unquote raising as you age, and that is a overall summary of what it actually is for everybody on the planet. So 2 to 6-year-olds are getting these downloaded past life memories, or they're accessing their real ones, who, one of the two, but you can decide for yourself after listening to some case studies. So I'll just lay out what I think is going on here for the vast majority of cases, and then I'll get into a more controversial theory, and then to account for a smaller portion of them, and then we'll get into evidence. So I'm just going to lay out, keep in mind everything we've gone over that applied to the first 2 episodes. Here's what I think is going on. For most of them, because 30% of these 2,500 cases of Stevenson's have 30 or 35 have birthmarks where, let's say they have a birthmark of this is true, of a slash across the neck, like a line across their neck. That means when they access their past life memory, that person with the slash across the neck actually got decapitated. So this is their next life showing the death wound show up as some sort of a sign of their death, to leave a breadcrumb of evidence, I suppose, of reincarnation. Even though they wipe our memories and want us to forget, they want us to kind of figure it out, I guess. It's weird. And create all this lore to guide us to reincarnation beliefs, even though if we're getting our memories wiped, we're not supposed to know because it affects with the test? I don't know. Anyway, and then some people will have like a hole in their chest or like a little patch, and then they might have one on their back as well, and that's a gunshot wound, right? Or it'll be all sorts of things, but whenever they get a past life death memory, it'll match their birthmark a certain percentage of the time. Like I said, this is only 35% of the cases have this. The rest of them do not. So the rest of them are much easier. Now, how can you explain these birthmarks if they are not truly from a past life death wound? Well, if demons can access all the memories of deaths because they are a hive mind and they have a database like an AI hive mind Borg, they can just identify a few things. One, they have to identify children who are alive with birthmarks. So they can just look at you while you're alive currently and do that. That's not hard for them to do if you already have a birthmark, right? And part 2, they search their perfect memory, which they have with for any data on anybody who died in the past few years. Now, whenever reincarnation cases come up, they typically have a 3-year gap max of the last life death to the next life birth. Usually it's around 18, 16 months, I believe, but they can sometimes be 5-year gap or even a 20-plus year gap, but the vast majority, 95, 96% of cases are between 3 years, right? And most of those cases, not all of them, are the lives of the people are 100 miles away max, usually. Maybe 200, but usually about 20 to 100 miles away. Now, I think that's strategically done because then you can be more likely to meet your past life family, which they do, and validate and get data to support it. Because what they do is, in these cases, Ian Stevenson researches, not all of them, but a lot of them, he'll take the child to their past life family, who is usually 100 miles away max, and they will meet them, and then they'll try to quiz them and see how much stuff they get right. And they get a lot right. Not all of it, but they get most of it. And this is because they're what like for example, maybe a sister of the past life personality will show up and be like, hey, who was I? And they'll be like, you were my sister. And they'll be like, no way, how'd you know that? Or aunt will come up and be like, hey, I was your sister too. And they'll be like, no, you're my aunt Brenda, you're lying. And they'll be like, whoa, you got me, how did you know that? Like, they'll try to trip them up, and they'll usually get it right. And that's very impressive. That's very seemingly indicating of reincarnation memories. Or under a second alternative, the collective consent that everybody's giving and belief in this story, and desiring to find out their past life personality, they're desiring to be lied to by demons, essentially, in the consent law form, and they are giving up consent so that now this download that already happened in a child who's open, and usually a pagan country and a pagan family who does pagan rituals often, these are the parents of the child who are getting these downloaded memories, which are then leaving their child unprotected from spiritual forces in a theta brainwave state. And this is happening in those countries, obviously, more than Christian countries, way more. Not being a Christian totally protects you, of course, if you're not living quite a good life. So they are now being influenced by the demons to give them thoughts and downloads whenever they are prompted for this information. That's what I believe is happening, and that's totally possible with everything that we know is within their capabilities, right? So, identify children with a birthmark, easy. 2, search for anybody who died within 100 miles away within the last 3 years, for the most cases, who died and had a wound in the same spot as this person's birthmark. Within all the people dying everywhere in the many years of our existence, it is not too hard to find people with death wounds that would match these birthmarks. And keep in mind, only 30% or so of cases. So it's not all of them, right? So if they don't have a birthmark, which is most of them, you don't even need to do all this, like, correlations here. You could just impress the death memory of anybody that you want at that point. And a lot of people who get their death memory of a past life, they'll have some maybe physical traumatic death, and then they won't have a birthmark. So why are so many not having birthmarks and so many are? And we'll get into some wounds that leave birthmarks, which don't even make any sense in the next few minutes. So then they just have to impress the correlating death memory of whoever they want, which they might be able to just transfer the actual memory from the person they've collected in their data collection, or they might just be creating one that's close enough to what really happened because they were probably witnessing this death go down, as they seem to be around for a lot of events. I feel like deaths and murders are something they would be visualizing and seeing themselves and collecting into their databases. So that is enough, I think, all these capabilities keeping in mind, which we've kind of proven as much as we can based on cases that they have. That explains the vast majority of these cases. And there are a few cases which are, well, one specific I'm about to get into, which is much more seemingly indicating of evidence that I'm going to break down in a second. I didn't know if you had any questions for me so far, any comments, my dude.
Nope. You keep right on ahead. I'm searching something
sick.
up right here.
All right, I'm rolling. I'm vibing. Let's do it. Okay, so that's what I think accounts for the vast majority of these reincarnation cases, because that covers all the bases in my opinion, and I'm not biased. Part 2, or strategy 2, that I think I really believe this, and it's hard to prove it because it's a lot of speculation, and people are going to hate on me for it, but whatever. It makes sense. Just hear me out. 2 is I think they can create these birthmarks on occasion. In the fetus, in the womb, while they're connected to a mother who is likely a pagan occultist of some sort, which is often the case. I believe they can affect what is essentially they call it the melanocytes, which are I might be saying that wrong, which are the pigment cells in our body. It's just when they abnormally cluster in fetal development is when they show up as birthmarks. It's not super invasive, honestly, as something to influence. And we know demons can influence our download information into us. They can affect our chemical feelings of joy and fear and all these things that make us feel certain types of way, which is affecting our chemical makeup in a physical way to a degree. We know they can read our minds. They can write memories onto our minds. They can affect our whole astral spiritual experiences. Can they affect our fetal development? Well, let's see. So here's a reason I think so. Here's one of the many reasons. For example, Nathaniel Gillis, my boy, talks about this one story, and there's many cases of things like this where people will do astral travel or have some sort of spiritual encounter, and it will be completely non-physical. Yet when it's over, or an astral abduction even, when it's over, they will wake up or come back from it with physical manifestations, physical marks, scratches, bruises, sometimes subdermal marks rising from the surface, which is what Gillis talks about here. He talks about this one guy going out of body, doing his astral work or whatever with his guides that he's had for a long time. And something sketchy happened, I don't remember what, where he essentially starts questioning the identity of his guides and not really trusting them and seeing them as maybe mischievous deceivers. And as soon as he thinks this in his head and starts distrusting them, obviously they can read his mind, like I've said, and they instantly shapeshift into, scary, monstrous type creatures, and they start attacking him in the astral. Now, this astral attack feels like real pain, which just like in dreams, you can feel real pain, it's seemingly so. And he woke up from this astral attack having specific calculated sigils imprinted on his body rising subdermally as like red marks. And he says that there was an Egyptian hieroglyph next to a Star of David, quote unquote, Star of Remphan, whatever you want to call it, as well as a cross, which might have been the Rosy Cross, I don't remember. But it was 3 calculated specific imprints, not just random bruises, that were rising out of his body. And there's pictures of this. I don't have them on me, but he has documentation of this. And there's multiple cases out there you can research where people have similar things. That's just a specific one showing calculated control. Now, if they can rise specific sigils and imprint them on the body after an astral attack for whatever reason that may be, if it's like an ownership branding thing, I don't know. But whatever reason it may be, it's documented. And if they could do that, can they also mess with the clustering of pigment cells in our fetal development to a mother who's open in the sense spiritually to these influences? And is the desire of the mother to know who their child was in a past life acting at all as some sort of consent form to impress false information onto their child? It seems to be the case. It seems to be absolutely possible. This is why, God says, don't seek divination. Don't put your belief in the wrong gods, because they will get rights legally to deceive you. So I think that's one reason, and there's more, and I want to make sure I'm getting all the dots here because it's so much information. Yeah, I got enough. Okay, so another case that supports this kind of is one in Ian Stevenson's book, 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, which is very convincing on its face, for sure. And whenever you read that, there's this one story where an uncle, I forgot his name, is hanging out with his niece and his nephew-in-law, having lunch or dinner, and they're eating, and the uncle is telling his niece that he's going to die soon, and when he does, he would like to reincarnate as her son. Now, a little creepy, a little weird, maybe wholesome in his head. I don't like the sound of it. He's just saying, our current relationship dynamic isn't quite what I want it to be, but your son would be. I think I'd be much happier. A little weird, whatever. We'll surpass that for the moment. But he says this before he dies, and he says, if I become your son, you will know, because I will have birthmarks. I'll have a big one going down the center of my spine and a smaller one next to it, which are surgical wounds that he had after a big surgery on his spine, where he had, I don't remember what it was, but it was some spinal surgery where he now has a big scar going down the center of it, which is a pretty big indicator, right? So he dies not long after, and she gets pregnant and has a son not long after that, within a few years. This son of hers had the exact scars this man predicted. Now, on the face, that seems like great evidence of reincarnation. I'm not going to lie. I get it. But, burp. But why is it that it is his death, not his death marks, but his surgical wounds that are showing up here? I've never seen I don't see many cases promoting that concept. And if your wounds from a past life are also carried over, then all death wounds should have carryovers, which, by the way, a lot of people relive death memories when they get the past life memory and they have a death memory. A lot of them will have a death that was very violent, and have no birthmarks. So why are those not transferring over, many of them? And why is it your non-death related wounds are also carrying over now? Now, keep in mind, this man pre-consented to having his identity stolen by these entities. He pre-prophesized that he would have these wounds on him, which are not death wounds. And his belief, his consent to allowing his identity to be taken here with this false belief system, and the mother's probably false belief in it as well, I think acts as consent for them to imprint this birthmark, based on what we know their abilities to be from all the case studies. So I think it's absolutely possible, and I think that this is why your belief and quote-unquote manifestations are so powerful. They are. We live in a legally, metaphysical, legal framework universe, but if you're giving your belief and power and consent to the wrong entities, they will utilize that to deceive you, which is what is going on in the astral constantly. If your non-death wounds carry over, not only should birthmarks in general be way more common, but like, let's say after Hiroshima, Nagasaki, whether that was nukes or not. I know there's some people out there who don't believe in them. I was on that team for a short time, but I don't know about that now. Whether it was a nuke or not, many people were blown the hell up. Tens of thousands of people in this area in this time of the Nagasaki bombings. And then you also have like why wouldn't there be a ton of babies being born within 1 to 3 years of that time period within 100 miles, which there should be according to the data? Why isn't there a ton of people showing up with birthmarks that are explosive and showing like variations in skin tone that are very dramatic? Why isn't there a large surplus of this? If even death wound or even non-death wounds show up, these crazy explosive death wounds should be showing up on a lot of people, and we don't see a large surplus of these cases at all, or almost any, in these areas after Nagasaki. And also after large wars, shouldn't there be tons of children born within 1 to 3 years of these large war locations, within 100 miles, having, bullet wound looking birthmarks and explosive birthmarks and all these graphic deaths, if even non-death wounds show up? So there is no database I can find of this. I tried to do research. Is there any collection of people near each other having the same types of birthmarks or many large cases of them? No, it's still relatively rare. And you would think that if this guy's surgical marks transferred over after he prophesied it, that would equal birthmarks being a much more common thing, which, I'm summarizing a lot of information here. You can say I'm stretching the truth or whatever, but I've done the research, and I suggest you do the same and see if you can find much different information. That's what I think accounts for these cases.
And I lost my legs and I died, and then I came back without my legs as a memory of my past life. I'd be pissed.
Yeah, no, rightfully so. But what's crazy, man? Not a lot, but a handful of cases I've seen will have someone being born with a stumpy hand. Their fingers will be very tiny and not grown out, and they'll have a stump hand. And then their past life memory will be impressed upon them, and they got their hand chopped off in the last life. And I'm like, wait, why is that even make any sense? Why is it that you had that, and you're supposed to karmically balance for what you've done to people, but you're a victim to a crime, and now you're a victim again in the next life, which doesn't make any sense because they're all about balancing and making sure everything's fair. So usually whenever you're a victim to something, they make sure you're a perpetrator to that same crime in the next life, if anything, which is also weird in a way because there's no real retribution there. But and that's one example, and they do other things. But why is it that this dude, they just gave this guy a past life memory to match it, so it seemed more solidified. It seemed more believable. Oh, that explains why I have the stump hand. I'm like, not really. It doesn't make sense why they would allow that to happen as the what's it called? The ascended masters that you're encountering, or the higher elder beings in these realms that are helping you plan your incarnations, which we're about to get into that in a bit, that whole lore. But before we do, I've got a couple more things. One, here's another sketchy thing, split consciousness lore. Now, this is something where one example of this that is famous is the Jameson twins from a couple decades back. And the Jameson twins, actually, I guess 2 decades or so, they got famous because they both claimed to be sharing one soul. They had one soul, and it split between the two of them, and they both incarnated as twins intentionally to do this. Now, they also said that they shared telepathic abilities with each other and psychic abilities in general. And another thing they said is they both predicted 9/11 in a prophetic dream vision. By the way, if I had a nickel for everybody who had a prophetic dream of 9/11, I'd be a wealthy middle class at least man, by the way. I would be, because so many people had that. Now, 9/11 obviously was known about by many humans before it happened, let alone the spirit realm, who obviously likely had a hand in it. Now, if they had a hand in it and they had the ability to impress false memories onto people in dreams and visions, why don't they just jack into people, give them a prophetic seeming dream, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, I must look into the psychic stuff. It must be real, because how else do you explain this? It's a way to segue you. It's a way to gateway drug you into this whole set of lore. It's very easy for them to do. So that's what I think is going on there, because a lot of people had that testimony. Now, these Jameson twins claim to have that testimony. They claim to be telepathic with each other, and they claim to share soul. They also claimed, believe it or not, to know this because they shared the same past life memories. They relived the same past life memories, which must mean they're telling the truth. Or demons are giving two guys the same memory and, making them look like jackasses. Who knows? Now, what's weird here is when you look into Hinduism and Buddhism and Sikhism and all the more ancient, original reincarnation-based belief systems, which are all derived from entity contact, channeling, and out-of-body travel, keep in mind, the same way this modern stuff is, all those belief systems teach of, like, subsequent one life after the next. You start as grass, rocks, and go up to insects, and then small animals and big animals, and then maybe a dog if you're lucky, and then you're a human, right? They teach it goes in order. And now the modern stuff is like, no, you can go out of order, back in time, future. There's no time, so it doesn't exist. And you don't really, some people teach you can downgrade and be a human, then go down into a lower animal if you're bad, but some teach that no, you always go up and raise your consciousness, no matter what, and you'll stay a human for a while until you figure it out. So that's a divergence. And another thing is that the old stuff does not teach of splitting your consciousness into multiple bodies. You cannot do that according to the old lore. Even Theosophy, which isn't that old, it's from the 1800s, even that denies split consciousness. But in the modern stuff, which is more goofy and outlandish, the modern channeled information, a lot of channeled entities push this idea. The Seth material, for example, no relation, from Jane Roberts. And quite a few others. Raw material, I believe, does, which I've did a whole cross-examination in my book on these things. But yeah, they change their teachings and update them for modern audiences to get crazier, and also make excuses for whenever they slip up maybe and give people the wrong things. But these twins, I think it was intentional to create this lore. Even Robert Monroe in the first part claimed to have a split consciousness because his higher self told him this. His higher self tells him, hey, we want you to do this great mission in the Astral and find us a new homeworld, whatever. And then they say that, oh, by the way, there's a backup girl who's born sharing your soul right now, but she's our backup in case you fail. But you're not going to fail. You're going to do great. We want you to do it, but just in case, we have a backup. They even told him that, and I'm barely paraphrasing that. So the modern sources teach this more so than the ancient original also entity contact sources. So it's just a little bit divergence that doesn't really make any sense if you can reincarnate that way and share your soul. Sometimes it's with your twin, or it'll be with a twin flame, which is like a soulmate that you're supposed to find and then bang forever, which is the ultimate form of narcissism if I've ever seen anything. And also sometimes just random, apparently, just like Monroe's, but it just seems to be loosely described in many different ways.
Well, Seth,
I'm going to find
opinion. I might throw you off a little bit, but I've
no, do it. I want to.
Already in the chat, throwing up some questions, and this is something that I've stumbled upon through different conversations, and it's made me stop and think. I haven't really come up with a theory yet or pondered on it too hard, but as far as reincarnation goes, we've had a couple people in the chat bring up Elijah. How Jesus said that, John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. So some people will say, well, that kind of goes with reincarnation. So Elijah came back as John, and Jesus even said it, But then at the same time, that very same book says it's appointed to man to die once.
Yeah, which would seemingly be divergence and an incompatibility or a hypocritical thing in the Bible. I'm not going to say I have the right answer there. I think there's quite a few assumptions that you can make from that. And there's also the story of the blind guy who was born blind, and what did they say? It was because of his past transgressions or something. I'm getting that wrong. But there's these verses you can cherry pick and say, oh, that's evidence of reincarnation in the Bible. And I'm like, well, first of all, the whole Bible promotes the one life. Hebrews 9:27 is very clear about it. So that either is one, the Bible has discrepancies and it is not, completely protected by the Lord, which I disagree with. I think it was for many, many reasons we can spend an hour on. But I think that's something more poetic might be the wrong word, but more metaphorical that is not necessarily meant to be taken literally, as a literally, no, this is the reincarnation of him. Like I said, everything in the Bible is against reincarnation. That is the deception from the other side of entities. I'm not going to say I have the right answer there, but you can easily say that that is a more poetic thing, or maybe they have similar hearts, character traits, etc., that can be said he has a spirit of him in that sense. There's no reason to say that you can for sure guarantee that means reincarnation, and if it does, then that makes the whole Bible up for question, which I'm a full Bible thumper for many reasons outside of dogma. I'm coming from a Gnostic viewpoint from the past, keep in mind. So, yeah, I've heard arguments on it, and I don't have anything memorized quite on that, but I've heard arguments that totally make sense hermeneutically when you factor it in. And I'd be interested in seeing what the original Greek or Hebrew of that was to see if those translations are perfectly done. But even so, there's still ways you can interpret that are not literal and reincarnation-based. I'm not going to say I have the perfect answer there, though, but thank you for asking.
Oh, yeah. And which the guy I was talking about, there was a couple in here talking about. One of them's Daniel. He's one of my regulars. He come in and just says, no, we answered that. The spirit is not the soul. I was wanting to pick Seth's brain. I knew what you guys were thinking.
Oh, well,
your messages,
yeah.
He was saying that his theory was, if I understood it correctly, is that there's a difference. There is a soul and there is a spirit. And
I buy into that.
The spirit of Elijah came. That was not the soul. That they're two distinct, separate things.
Yeah, it could be like, I mean, maybe this is wrong, but it could be like a Holy Spirit coming to dwell within you. This is the spirit of Elijah, maybe interacting from that area and being, influencing you, such as the Holy Spirit would. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm not like Dan Duval, who says you can ask your spirit to integrate with your soul, which you're the soul and the spirit's on the outside of you. And he asked for people to integrate with it so that you can get the more metaphysical power is maybe the wrong word. But get their influence and their guidance from you, which is, higher self rebranding for Christians. I don't believe that stuff. That's where I would draw the line. But I do see us as like a triune, like God, body, flesh, soul, and spirit. Sure, I'm totally open to that. Because animals, right? They have one of the two, right? But they don't have like the spirit of God within them, but they seem to have a soul or spirit. I don't remember which is which, but they seem to have one to empower their life.
So maybe
well, see, what do I know?
From the past life when they were eating real bad, all the bad calories go to that stomach.
And that's a very reasonable way to look at it. Absolutely. So yeah, man, there's a lot of silly stuff out here in the reincarnation lore, and another one which I think is very insightful because this is a quote from Ian Stevenson in one of his books, and he has multiple times he's talked about this. He's done full articles on these topics. People like to use him as like, a way to support reincarnation, and they never bring up this part. No one I ever hear on the, pro-reincarnation side ever brings this up, and it's very interesting. One of his quotes from one of his books says, foreign spirits, as in ghosts, roaming the earth plane, foreign spirits can occupy living persons, completely displace original personalities, and persist indefinitely. So he's talking about ghost possession, not demons. He doesn't believe in demons. But he believes ghosts will possess people and live out their lives in these new bodies as opposed to reincarnating, going to the higher realm. So they'll be roaming the earth plane, and they'll find an open window where someone maybe had an NDE or something, and then they'll slide in and take over. Now,
like Grand
I don't
Theft
believe
Auto. You're just walking around and like, hey, I want to drive this car for a little while. Get out.
No, exactly. They Grand Theft Auto your body, which is kind of intrusive and immoral, I would say. But, they're ghosts. They don't really have a lot of morals, it seems.
Grand Theft Auto in the spirit world. I love
it. Amen. So, yeah, and Stevenson even created this formal typology ranging from temporary possession to permanent possession that he classified as reincarnation. And he has a whole like breakdown on this thing. So my point in saying this is the top reincarnation believer, evidence bringer that people quote acknowledges possession to account for many of these cases. And I'll go over a couple in a second, but I just think that is something that needs to be accounted for because a lot of people don't like to talk about that or possession in general. And if they're not who they say they are, that throws a whole wrench in this. So I'm going to talk about a couple stories, and you tell me if you buy that they are who they say they are. Now, the third one being the more detailed, but the first two are... One is Jasbir Jat, and this is a very documented story in Stevenson's work. And he was a 3.5-year-old, and he had a near-death experience after having, I think, smallpox. and he died for, they say, a while, like maybe a couple hours. Not who knows? I've heard crazier things, but he died for a while, or appeared to have died, and then he comes back a few hours later, claiming to be somebody else, and has a much more mature personality. And his new name he's claiming to be is Sabha Ram. Now, this Sabha Ram character claimed to have died a few days earlier, and records show, whenever they looked for documentation, that he died anywhere from 2 to 14 days earlier. They don't know which, because documentation in these small villages wasn't the most prolific, apparently. So, but they know he died a few days before. So this character died, a 22-year-old, from falling off of a cart and banging its head up pretty bad. Sad way to go out, whatever. And apparently they claimed to have memories when they came back as a child. As a child, they claimed that I was guided here into this body from a holy man who transferred me to this body, as opposed to going through the rigmarole of reincarnating in the spirit realm and going up and then coming down. They didn't want to do that. And this holy man, who's apparently, which makes it sound like it's a positive, benevolent force, I don't know why they would tell you to go into this child's body and possess them and displace their consciousness, as opposed to going to reincarnate the natural, regular way. I'm surprised. It doesn't sound like a holy thing to do, but that's what they called it. So it just seems a little sketchy off the bat. And
George Thorogood, move it on over.
yeah, there's a lot of that going on, man. That song might have been written by a demon. Who knows? As a lot of them are. But no, I just find that a whole sketchy story to begin with. And then there's another one with this woman named Sumitra. And she, when she was 17, at 17 years old in 1985, July, she died, or appeared to have died after a bad sickness, and ends up being revived a bit later. And when she comes back, she claims to be another woman named Shiva Tripathi. And she claimed to have died as Shiva by being pushed in front of a train, cartoon Coyote and Wile and Coyote style, pushed in front of a train and exploded, of course. And she claimed to be, that was 2 months ago from documentation. So for 2 months, she's a ghost roaming the earth plane and finds this, dead body to come into. And I don't think the original consciousness of Sumitra, I don't think it's like she went to heaven or hell and she's gone and this body's being animated purely by a demon. I believe that these people need a human soul to power it, and they're just displacing the personality and turning them off. And I believe that because about 1.5 years after this possession, which, by the way, she was possessed her whole life till she died, except for this one instance. Like 18 years later, she died. And before this, her family believed she was possessed by a ghost, and they hired Ojas, Ohjas, might be saying that wrong, to exorcise her, but they're pagan. So whatever they're doing is all theatrics, and they actually didn't get rid of them. It's like the SRT stuff. They'll get rid of themselves whenever it's strategic and necessary. But these Ojas aren't building a huge framework and making a book and being an asset in the way that they're sharing this story. So they don't have to follow the rules with these people as much. So they're not following the rules, and they don't get exercised.
Like big gargoyles just scare off demons.
yeah, it's all a show, basically. But so they failed to exorcise her, and they basically tortured her for a long time to try to get her to get the ghost out, or the demon that was pretending to be a ghost, whichever. So at one point, she gets sick again about 1.5 years after this possession took place, and she temporarily comes back claiming to be her original self for a couple hours and having no memory of any time lapse. So, it's nice that they're not just witnessing everything this possessing entity is doing. They're kind of turned off, which is a nice alternative to what could be happening. But she was always there. She was always there. And she eventually gets possessed again like a few hours after, and the entity comes back. Now, I don't know why this happened for sure, but here's what we can know for sure. These dramatic fevers that are really painful often induce trance states, and it could do something to the consciousness to make, them be able to battle for control. Who knows? But maybe the entity just wanted to leave because he is really not having fun and wanted her to deal with the sickness, the worst parts of it, and then come back later because there's no door closed after this happened. There's no spiritual, renunciation or, committance to Jesus or anything like that. So he can just come back later. So I think that's might have been as simple of an explanation of what happened. It's speculation. What do I know? So there's one. It's just sketchy though. It just doesn't. It just doesn't add up. Like, why would a ghost want to do this as opposed to reincarnating, which they now believe in reincarnation, of course, if they've been through this whole situation? Why would they not want to just start over and take over somebody else's family and body? And they rejected their family as this person. They're not even trying to live a good life. They had a very awful, situation with their family afterwards, and they reject them. So it's just a little evil, and I guess ghosts can be evil too, but it's just weird. So one more story, which is even crazier, is this is probably maybe the most documented story of a ghost interaction / possession ever that I could find. It is in the book The Watseka Wonder, which took place in a town called Watseka, I think in Wisconsin or Idaho, something like potato vibe. And this was in the late 1800s, I believe. And it's all detailed in the book. And there's a few characters here we need to name. They're all named Mary. Mary Lorancy Venom is a 2-year-old at this point, and then she has a Methodist family, and her mother's name is Mary or something. So there's a lot of Marys. And then the other girl we're going to talk about is Mary Roff, Roff. So Mary Roff is about 17 or 18, while Mary Venom, her neighbor, is 2 years old. So these are neighbors. And the Mary Roff, her family is, the 18-year-old, her family is spiritualists, mediums, occultists, very heavy practitioners, okay? So keep that in mind. So the practitioners, the occultists, their daughter, Mary Roff, is dealing with a lot of suicidal ideation and self-harm and spiritual encounters and a lot of nasty stuff. So bad that she commits suicide, or that's what is insinuated by the autopsy, which was a little vague on the matter, but it insinuated that. And she died pretty, in a sad way, of course. So that is the occultist family. And then their neighbor within the same neighborhood is Mary Venom. And that Mary is 2 years old at this time. Okay, so 12 or 13 years pass after this death, and now Mary Venom is around 15. And these families didn't really have a lot of interactions. They knew of each other. They maybe were like polite, but they never really hung out. So Mary Venom is now 15 or so, I believe. And she starts, after having a normal upbringing, she starts having a lot of spiritual warfare. We don't know why. We don't know what opened her up, but she starts having a lot of spiritual warfare and starts getting visions, like clairvoyant type visions. She starts communicating with dead loved ones and dead entities, apparently who are ghosts or claiming to be ghosts. And she starts getting visions of angels in heaven. I don't believe she mentions demons, but she mentions angels. So that's interesting. And we know in part 2 that demons can mask as angels or light beings very easily, and as Jesus. They admit to this. That is admitted in part 2 in the lore. So she's getting, in heaven, also they do fake heavens, but that's a whole other conversation. So who knows what she's really seeing, but that's what she claimed to after a lot of spiritual warfare. Now, her parents try all these drastic measures to heal her, such as bloodletting, not fun, and other medications and drugs and surgical stuff, and none of it was working, and now she's just traumatized even more. And then they eventually get desperate and go to their spiritual medium neighbors for help, so they can see if they can find any spiritual solutions to this. And they are glad to help. And they're the ones with the dead daughter, keep in mind, who died 12 years earlier. So they go to them, and all of a sudden, they end up channeling through this girl, and she claims to be their dead daughter. All of a sudden. The ghost or demon finds an opportunity to create a story here, and it goes very according to plan. So now they're channeling their daughter, and now this daughter has taken over, and I think was taken over for a bit, but just all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm actually your daughter, even though they never said that before meeting them, which is interesting. Kind of weird how that just happened all of a sudden. So starts claiming to be their dead daughter, who's been roaming the earth plane the past 12, 13 years, and decided to come back because they missed their family. Now, if you killed yourself, I don't know, maybe you didn't have the best family ever, because if you did, you probably wouldn't have done that. Just a little strange she wanted to come back to see them. So, she's now possessing this Mary Venom character, and this goes on for a while. Now, after about 2 weeks of claiming to be this personality, she's rejecting her family, the Venoms, and saying, I want to live with my real family, your neighbors, and go live with them. And after much discussion, they decide, you know what, it's probably for the best. Okay, that's if you say so. So she goes to live with this other family who is
to increase your light bill, your water bill, phone bill, and grocery. But go right ahead, take her.
That's probably a factor here. Yes. So, dude, so she goes to live with the Roths for 3 months and pretends to be their daughter, and is also quite a bit of a model citizen. Is very polite, nice, and couldn't be a demon because a demon's not capable of acting, as we haven't seen in the past few episodes of material. But is very nice, helping out with chores, being, I don't remember all the details, but I just remember thinking she's a model citizen. This is the idea that was coming across. And after 3 months of this, she all of a sudden decides, after possessing this girl's body, and keep in mind, after she was claiming to be this new personality and the possession was full, her spiritual warfare stopped. So, or maybe just this entity got what it want, full possession, probably got some agreement saying, hey, I'll stop torturing you if you allow me to possess you in some scenario, which, by the way, is how they typically will go about it in certain case studies I've read. And so she agreed to it to some level, because to be fully possessed, you have to agree to it. At some level, I have to know. So she probably said, I'll stop harassing you, and then it's not really worth it because then you're not really existing anymore. And now now their daughter's not having spiritual warfare, but it's not their daughter anymore. So after 3 months of this, she announces, hey, I've healed this woman's body, or this girl's body. I've healed it. I've fixed her. I've made her life better because my presence stopped the spiritual warfare. A half-truth. And says, I think it's time for me to move on. What? I don't know. Okay, I guess you just wanted to help, whatever. But she ends up leaving with some fanfare. And now, boom, this girl is back. She remembers nothing. And she doesn't have spiritual warfare anymore. And is this like SRT, spirit releasement therapy, where they're strategically laying off pressure now to make it seem like a ghost took over for the right reasons, which you may not like it, but had good intentions. One, it makes them seem not evil for possessing. It makes possession seem not that bad because it was well-intentioned to heal. And two, it's creating lore, which, by the way, this story has over 100 signed affidavits from family members, from witnesses, from doctors, from the spiritual mediums, there's 100 signed affidavits. Okay, so this is a legitimate story. Okay, they wanted this to be documented, just like they do the reincarnation cases, because it creates lore, creates mythology in the modern era that we can look to as evidence for their reincarnation belief systems, which they then double down on by supporting in channeled information and astral travel testimonies, which generically align, but like I said, have deviances which don't make sense. But that doesn't matter because most people don't, pinpoint these things. So I think that story...
Can't read.
No, exactly. So how are they going to cross-examine complex, nuanced belief systems? They're not going to do it. And they're not going to listen to this guy do it because I look like this. So, and I get it. But, yeah, man, it's creating stories. It's creating mythology, which they are known to do. Listen to Nathaniel Gillis on his lore here. They create mythology, and they always have. And they diverge it between different, cultures and stuff. But it's all strategically done to guide you away from a biblical cosmology. Because if ghosts exist and they're roaming the earth plane, well, that's already evidence the Bible is false. Because the Bible has no mention of this and does not support that at all. So if they can be a demon and mask as a person, which they can take identity of whoever, especially a spiritual mediumist family who, have allowed that. I don't know if that's necessary, but it definitely helps. And they can just pretend to be whoever, and and tell you whoever they are. And if you believe them, they have rights to make up a whole story, and then they leave strategically so that they can make it seem like they did a good thing. That's what I think this entire story is. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but it's quite a banger.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty wild. And was this girl? Was she around that 12-year age group that you're talking about that was prime?
I think
for this?
14 or 15. Well, no, that's for being in the theta brainwave state, which is 2 to 6 years old. But everybody who's possessed is not a 2 to 6 year old, and I think that accounts for a small number of cases. But most of them, I think, is just data analysis and strategic choosing of who you're implanting certain memories into. That's what accounts for all of it, in my opinion. But no, she wasn't in that brainwave state. I'm saying you're open in a theta brainwave state because it's kind of a disassociation. And whenever you empty your mind in these disassociative states, intentional or not, you're to a degree, giving some sort of open room, wiggle room for someone else to fill it. And they also get more consents based on your level of sin, occult practice, so on. So it's degrees. So if you're in an occult family who's doing all these practices and you're disassociating, trauma-based mind control is forcing disassociation so that you can have entities possess you and claim to be, certain entities and such and whatnot, in my opinion. So it's the same logic, I think. So you don't have to be super young to be possessed. That is pretty apparent. It's just a level of consents given, or rituals or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's some interesting lore, which I think
has anything to do with this, Seth. Like, because I know, like, far as fear is a very strong, controlling
I mean,
factor,
people
and
say
we all fear death. So it's like if they can hear about this ideology of no, everything continues on, and you just bounce to the next body or whatever else, you get the new card every time you wreck and total the other one. That, I don't know, maybe the fear of death makes people more prone to maybe hope,
Yeah.
this kind of thing.
I agree to a degree, because people say, like, oh, fear is the opposite of faith. And to a large degree, I agree with that. Maybe not like jump scare, but like prolonged anxiety and worry about things that you shouldn't be worried about, because the Lord tells us why we don't need to if we know our identity in Christ, right? Now, is it a huge open door to be fearful? I don't think it's a huge open door. I think as a sin, it's not a huge sin. It's just more of something that's not the best for your development, spiritually or otherwise. So I think it is a degree. I think this whole opening the door, so to speak, is so varying in degrees, and it's such a percentage thing that every little thing has its little mathematical part to play. So I think fear is a small little, inch of that. But I don't think it allows major doors to be opened just by being. Now, if you live in fear and you're constantly afraid and you don't understand your identity in Christ and you believe crazy things because fear drives you to crazier things, crazier sins, you do a lot of bad things out of fear. So fear itself, maybe not as much, but what fear guides you to, sure, absolutely. And the whole reincarnation thing is problematic because, it gives people no urgency to improve themselves. Oh, I can just do it in the next life, or the next life. I have infinite tries. So there's no urgency, which is also really bad because that's not a good way to live your life, of course.
Yeah. The times I have thought about it or has crossed my mind, honestly, which I know it's not a biblical thing, but of course, how well, it might just be me, but I think about random things from time to time. But I was kind of like having like some internal dialogue the other day, I guess maybe where I knew this conversation was coming. But I was like, I worked my butt off and broke my back, and I'm just an old decrepit man now, where I was working 2 and 3 jobs my whole life to try to support a family and stuff, and now I'm finally to the point to where I can make my money off my brain, make a living off my brain,
as you should.
And now I'm like, now I'm where I want to be, dude. I'm happy as a pig in shit. You know what I mean? I get to read and study and talk and have these conversations and stuff, and I'm like, what a cruel joke it would be to be taken out right about now. And I'm like, I'm getting all these books, stocking my library up, and it's like, man, if there is a past life, man, I hope I'm born back into this family and get to re-inherit all my book collection back.
I feel the same way, man. I mean, I don't buy into it, and I won't even entertain it. But if I did, I would say a similar thing. I'm doing good myself, so I hope I don't have to have a really bad life to balance out my good one or something, because that seems to be a pattern they play out. But yeah, man, moving on to the extensive list of lore here is we're going to talk about. So when you do reincarnation-based memories in regression, which we're going to talk about more adjacent stuff.
What is that terminology, regression?
It's it's going into a setting where you are getting into a very still, meditative theta brainwave state, and you are, usually the therapist that's there with you, or regressionist, whatever, is helping you do so with maybe techniques like recommending you count backwards to this number, and then eventually you'll be still and calm enough, or recommending certain things. There's a million different things they can do. It can be binaural beats, it can be whatever. But
just tuning your frequency, basically.
Yeah, and it's getting you into a state which is open for psychic information, or entity contact, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, regression's used for a lot of things. It's not just past life memories, which have enough problems on their own, but it's also pre-birth memories, like in between life memories and between your incarnations, where people will get tons of. Okay, so there's tons of books on this. Some of the main authors are Dr. Michael Newton, Helen Wambach, Dolores Cannon. They are regressionists, and they get people in these states, and they'll access past life memories. And at some point in these sessions, often, and there's full books dedicated to this topic, there are collectively thousands of these cases now, so it's consistent, and data consistency doesn't necessarily mean it's legitimate, by the way. Could mean an orchestrated thing on the other side happening. But there's consistent data showing patterns of pre-birth memories where people are meeting with spiritual elders, ascended masters, so on, in the higher heaven type realms, not heaven of the biblical standard, but and they are planning their incarnation. They are getting a life review of their recent life, and they're planning their next incarnation. They get to choose their location geographically. Often is usually within 100 miles of their original place, but they don't really talk about that as much in the regression stuff. But whatever. And they choose their location, their gender, their socioeconomic condition, their family members, their wiener size, I bet. They're trying to balance their illnesses, their death, etc. They're trying to balance their karma optimally, not trying to progress in every life necessarily. Because
perfect wiener size puts you in perfect balance. Just
amen.
Saying.
Yes, we would know. So
that's why I'm always this way.
It's heavy, man. No.
Stick.
You gotta stay hydrated, bro. It's dangerous out here. Yeah, man. It's so they choose all these things. It leaves very, very little room for free will. They often choose their spouses, even if they've had 12 wives. I guess they chose them all, or most of them. It's weird. You choose a lot of your major life events, leaving very little room for free will, which makes this whole thing kind of sketchy to start with. But in these memories, they're council members, their elders, they're never judgmental. They always say that they're not judgmental. They're not like Yahweh. Okay. They allow you to choose an easier or harder life based on how much spiritual growth you want. The harder lives reward more spiritual growth usually, not always. Now, and you also have a soul family. So you'll often reincarnate with the same characters. Like if you had a dad in this life, he might've been your wife in a past life. There's a lot of soul incest going on in these scenarios, a lot. And
inbreeders.
Yeah, but it's just they make it seem like it's okay, but it's a little bit gross. But people will find out their parents were their ex-lovers in past lives. I think that's just demons torturing us in very sick ways and making us normalize the most evil stuff. But what are you gonna do?
That's Nietzsche coming back to haunt people.
Yeah, that guy's a monster for sure. So there's a lot of weird stuff there, and I'm not going to do a whole giant breakdown on that because I don't have it prepared. But there is correlations with other adjacent lore which don't line up very well at all. Now, I'm going to talk about a book for a moment, and then we're going to cross-examine these two things. The book it's pretty underground. It is Cosmic Cradle, Spiritual Dimensions Spiritual Dimensions of Life Before Death. And it's written by Elizabeth Carmen and some friends, and it compiles over 200 testimonies across the whole world of all different cultures talking about mothers, typically mothers, getting visions and dreams of encounters with spirit babies, their future spirits, the spirits of their future children. They're usually pregnant or they're getting pregnant in this moment, and they will see a vision of a spirit baby who is 3 to 6 years old usually, looking like that. It'll look like a 3 to 6 year old, and it will look like their future child, typically. And they will say something stupid and pointless and unnecessary, like, "Mommy, I love you. I'm coming to see you." Or they'll talk like a child. They'll have child speak, and they'll say like, "I love you," or "I can't wait to be your kid," or something stupid and unnecessary completely. I guess it's to establish a bond beforehand, but it's just a quick little vision dream. Sometimes there will be a bunch of spirit babies fighting over you, and they'll say, "Pick me, no, pick me, no, pick me," and they'll argue over you. That's a little weird. I don't know why that's necessary. Yeah, it's there's over 200 of these cases documented, plenty more out there. But yeah, it is. They'll show up in meditation sometimes. They will show up in these dreams and visions, theta brainwave state, opening, etc. So here's a weird thing. Out of all these thousands of pre-birth memories that people access in regression, there is not a single one I can find of anybody mentioning a visitation to their mother in the spirit showing up as a child, which, by the way, in these life planning things, you are not a 3 to 6 year old. You do not speak like a child. You are formed as yourself as your past life, or a combination of them. You know, it varies, but you have a mature mentality. Okay, you are not a child. But in these pre-birth memories, the person isn't even. Sometimes it's before they're before they're even a fetus, before they're pregnant, and it's like when they're about to get pregnant. So it's before they're even connected to that fetus, right? As early as it may be. So why are they a 3 to 6 year old specifically? Why are they dumb? If they're truly in a mature spirit in the spirit realm coming down to say hi, why are they showing up as a 3 to 6 year old and dumbing down their look and their vibe and their dialogue and their intelligence to have some cutesy, overly cute, manipulative, adorable behavior? Now, if it's a demon masking as a child, what are they doing here? Is it just like they do in dreams, like Vicky Joy Anderson talks about? Are they consent harvesting? Are they trying to get you to believe, one, in something that promotes reincarnation?
Building rapport.
Yes, building rapport. And then two, they usually fulfill it, right? So they'll have this vision, the mother, and then when their child is 2, 3, 4 years old, just like reincarnation memories, they will get a memory of visiting their mother in the spirit. Now, you can't see, nobody accesses this in regression memories, but only the kids whose mother already had the pre-programmed vision. Now that child will get that memory. But nobody else will talk about this except mothers who already had that, which is a little weird. They don't cross over. They will have memories and say, hey, remember when I came to visit you? Or remember when you aborted me and I came back as your son instead of your daughter because you aborted me, or you had a miscarriage? Like, they'll say weird stuff like that. And these kids will have memories of being a spirit baby and visiting their mother, but only the ones whose mothers already had it. So it's just like, it's not outside of that in the regression stuff at all, which is weird. They don't overlap. I find this, I want to read some quotes from the book in a minute. Let me see if I got everything first. Overall, the whole point of this is seeding additional reincarnation spiritualist type lore and consent harvesting, in my opinion, because whenever their mother believes it, then they're giving their permission for their child to be accessed when they're in the theta brainwave state as a 2-year-old, which then they do. They're not protecting their child. They're doing the opposite. They're leaving them open because their belief and consent is being acted upon there. That's what I think is going on. So let me read some quotes from the book really quick, because they are either insightful to showing what's going on here, or they're retarded and funny, or they're a little bit of both. So
A little bit of both.
I got a number here, but yeah, yeah, we got some combinations here. So one is, as a child, I knew that all the explanations of where I'd come from did not resonate with me, although I had no words to explain where I came from. As a young adult, I even tried previous life regressions, divination, and got some hits. Even so, they were not my souls. Some were my physical body elementals' previous experiences, and others were experiences of those people around me. Okay, one, she already did past life regression before, leaving herself open, being a believer. 1, so already opened up. 2, she says some of her memories were from her physical body's elementals experience, which, by the way, doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand what she's saying, because it's your soul that reincarnates, not your body, elemental, whatever. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's like she's claiming to be a wanderer coming in, taking over this person's body, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And she says other memories she gets, which she relives as if they're her own, are other people near her. Okay? Just keep that in mind, and we'll reference part 2 material where this is relevant as well in a minute. Another quote, which is even crazier, is a guy who is an adult now, but he says he accessed the memory of himself as a fetus, but he's a spirit, and he's a mature spirit while he's a fetus. Okay, even though your spirit turns into a baby spirit whenever you're born. It's weird. So he says that he remembers going out of his body as a fetus, spirit, mature spirit, and astral traveling. And then he says he still does it. So he says, I came and went as I pleased, out of his mother's womb. He says, I played anywhere I wanted. Lots of playtime took place on Jupiter, the planet of growth, and Saturn, the karmic teacher. That is where most of my lessons came from. That is where I hung out. I still do. So he's saying, I remember astral traveling, or I got a memory accessing astral travel memories as a fetus, going to different planets to get lessons from entities. And Saturn's one of them. Saturn worship, a little weird connection there. And he says he still does, which means he still astral travels. Now, if you watch part 1, you know that the astral realm and astral travel is fake and gay, and that's not probably happening. So to get a memory of him doing it as a fetus is just a little more icing on the cake of Bologna. I don't believe it, and I think this person is insane. And this is what they have claimed to be as a literal lifestyle for them since. I don't. If you buy all this, you have to take a lot of this slop with it. It's going to get silly right now. So one quote here is he says, rebirth planning was like watching a thriller movie. So this is showing more vision control, admittedly so by the elders in this realm. So whether or not the whole thing's fake or real, even if it's real, they have the ability to impress movie-like visions of your life, Akashic record style of anything they want.
Spirit realm shenanigans, an unhinged rant exposing the psychic.
Thank you, exactly. That's the voice for the audiobook, by the way. It's very
Sorry.
soothing and silly.
See,
So,
you blew my cover. See, I was as you were talking, I was going to, throw this up, be like,
Oh, you want to throw in a funny little video?
Well,
I've been posting
show
on
people your YouTube channel, so that way they can
Yeah.
listen to your audiobook and stuff right here on YouTube.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I have a lot of quotes and excerpts, and all the excerpts are, I pick funny voices for. Dan Duvall, I gave Aqua Teen Hunger Force's Master Shake, which is a good one. It was hard to develop these voices, by the way. I had to use AI for it, but worth it. Yeah, man. So some more quotes that are crazy is between his second past life and his current life, Thundercloud incarnated in animal bodies. He became transformed into a fish. So again, showing you can downgrade to a fish and go back up. Some reincarnation teachings from entities teach that is all sequential. You can only go up. You can't go down. Other people teach the opposite. It's just it doesn't correlate or it doesn't mix well. Another one that's even crazier is the woman concluded the spirit child seeking a mother paddled a spirit canoe upriver. The spirit child saw me and entered my womb. That's why I'm pregnant, an elder added. White people have a different way. These things happen to black people. That's crazy. Black people can just be, they don't have to have sex to get, a child. It's just a spirit baby in a canoe. Spirit canoe.
Oh, yeah, but immediately it's like, yeah, white people have a different way. It's like, when we access the spirit realm, what we like to do down here.
Yeah, man. That's a perfect thing to play against this. Yeah, man. It's that's the thing. Well, that's more third world mentality here, and this is coming from a more I'm gonna say third world area for that testimony. That's what they say. That's what they believe. Yeah, another quote is, meditation was part of Elsa's daily routine for spiritual growth. On a meditation retreat with thousands of people, unexpected thoughts came up during meditation. And here's what the thoughts were. Have another baby, have another baby, have another baby. Elsa thought, no, I have enough children. You're such a good mother. Have another baby. Have one of us. What a good mother you would be. We want you to be our mother. Come on, have a baby. Have one of us. This is actual dialogue she quotes. After 5 days, the souls began to fade out, and she said, and the voices of the children said, all right, we're going away. You can't have us. I thought, oh no, come back. I will have one. And that was a great sales technique. That was the end of the quote. That whole thing I just said.
Oh, the
so
husband
here in her
absolutely loved that.
That's right, man. And dude, it's like she's literally at a meditation retreat. She's getting in a theta brainwave state. She's getting open, and these voices in her head are showing up as little children talking to her, saying, have one of us. Multiple babies fighting over one mother. Now, in life plans, you're not really fighting over the same life. I never hear of that being talked about, but apparently these spirit babies are doing so. It's just another thing that doesn't make any sense. And she agrees to it and consents, and boom, now she's going to get some influences from these demons. Another one, even sillier, I imagine. A Vietnamese man who refused to drink the spiritual soup of amnesia in the before-birth world surreptitiously slipped it to his dog instead. Now, that's stupid, but it's saying he avoided the memory erasure in the between-life realms by sneaking away his soup. He's supposed to drink the amnesia soup. He avoided it and gave it to his dog, the spirit of his dog, which was with him, apparently, in this incarnation, in this pre-birth life. Now, I don't know how he got away with that. Nobody caught him, these all-knowing spirit beings. But then that means he came back with all his memories, which, by the way, he didn't. He just had access to a handful of them. So doesn't make a lot of sense that you can just avoid, drinking the amnesia soup. If that happened, I feel like a lot more people would have stories like that. I've never heard anybody else say anything like that. So I just thought that was one that stood out as silly. And this came by way of memories. You're killing the soundboard, bro. Thank you. So there is...
Gonna be on it, man.
Oh, God. Yeah, here's another one. I have the most memories of lives when I practice mysticism or healing art. Now, wouldn't that benefit them to give you those memories of these occult practices? Another one that's crazy. I made pennyroyal tea to abort the baby. As I was about to drink the tea, a loud, raging voice said, "No!" And I spilled the tea. The voice explained, "I am coming to the planet, and you are the vehicle I must come through." And she said, "Okay, I'll be the vehicle for you."
Yeah, I'll be your
Is
vehicle.
Is this not a little on the nose of just giving consents away to deceiving entities? I don't know. This one's fun. They suited him because they were clean, kept their camps swept up, and sent their women a long way off to menstruate. When are we going to do that in this country? Sorry, ladies.
Starfire, anyone?
Oh my God. Okay, last one. This one, I regret even saying it in advance, but it's too funny to me. He was crazy drunk when I met him. Dave date raped me when I was 14. I didn't want to be with him, except he enticed me with cigarettes and with money. I was born with an addiction because my mother had smoked 2 packs per day during my womb time. Besides, smoking was cool. Everyone was doing it. I just had to end there. I'm sorry. It's just funny to me, that last line. But yeah, this is the book that delivers the exact lore I was just going over. The spirit baby stuff. So all these things, you have to, and there's more, there's a lot more, by the way, in the book. You have to kind of take on these if you want to believe this is all happening. And if even one of these is some sketchy deception, how can we trust the rest of them? A lot of them seem very sketchy to me.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. Here's now an even crazier. Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's this other book that is very underground. I do not hear talked about ever. The only person I've heard reference it is Jason Giorgiani, one of my many arch nemesis, and he brought it up at a space one time, and he doesn't name it, but it is the only book of its kind. There's no other book like this that I can find. So I know he was talking about this book, and he uses it as data for real future prophetic information. Not seeing that it's a controlled deception, but we'll get into this. So it's called Mass Dreams of the Future, and it is a book written by Chet B. Snow and Helen Wambach, and it is a bunch of regression data. It is data heavy, and very respectably so. They're using data. They're trying to get a cohesive story here. Now, what it is a collection of future life memories, not past life memories, but future. What they do is they take people with past life memory sessions, and then when it's over, they ask them to try to access the years 2100 and also 2300 and see if they have a future life that they can access so they can find out what the future is going to be like. And they get quite a bit of data from this. Now, in the same way they get a past life memory, it's the same mechanism. You know what I'm saying? So, in this book, I'll start off by saying the first chapter is Chet B. Snow, the author's own testimony. Not of his future life, but of his future on Earth. So it's in the year 2000, and all this data is coming from the 83 to 86 or so in the 80s. So they're doing all these in the 80s, and his story is 15 years in the future into the year 2000, right? And he tells a whole chapter of detailed emotional memories where there's a huge cataclysm that happens in the next few years, before 2000, which already didn't come to pass, obviously. And he talks about becoming a spiritual leader and becoming telepathic so much so that he's communicating with aliens to help us get resources because we're so distraught, and we had a big depopulation event. The grid is down everywhere, and we're surviving via, more horse and buggy type resource gathering, but also alien help. And we're telepathically communicating across the world with our telepathic radios, with our minds. And we're teaching children to be telepathic. We're doing all the things. And he remembers his death and all these things, and remembers going to the spirit realm afterwards. He remembers all this in the future. But it didn't come to pass because none of this happened. So just keep in mind, his future life he accessed, or future memory of his current life, was totally wrong in so many ways, like a million ways I don't have time to get into. But it all succeeded in gratifying his ego and desires to have spiritual powers and leadership of some sorts. It was very, very, very ego stroking and very beneficial to him. Didn't come true. None of it did. So keep that in mind before we go into this. Now, the rest of this is there's 2,500 people they asked to do this in this study to access future life memories. Out of 2,500, they only get hits from 350, give or take, and a few more in another way we'll get into. But they said only about 5.5% of the people surveyed had a future life memory in the year 2100, and only 11 or so percent had a future life in the year 2300. Now, if this is a demonic operation strategically doing this, what is the message they're trying to convey? Okay, well, and this is also conveyed in the actual data, by the way. They're trying to convey that a great cataclysm is coming soon after the 80s. Such a great cataclysm that the population is about 5% of what it used to be. And then the gradual buildup in the next 200 years to double. So it's showing a huge depopulation event and then a steady incline. That's what the data is conveying very clearly. And that's why they take it seriously, because if everybody had a future life memory, that must mean we don't have any big depopulation, right? That's what it would insinuate very clearly. So demons are strategically giving out a small amount of memories because there's enough people are being surveyed to where it doesn't matter. They can get enough data. It's 2,500 people. So out of the 350 people or so that get hits, they give consistent data that is very specific stuff, right? They talk about 4 civilization types in this post-cataclysm world. Now, there's 4 of them, and so I don't forget, 32% of them, of the 350, were in high-tech domed AI-run cities that are in like the Simpsons dome, literally, or they're underground bunker type cities. That is where 32% of people live, and it's kind of empty of meaning, devoid of meaning. There's not much purpose. It's very AI-run city, very, brave new world, new world order type vibes going on, high government control. Not a good vibe. Then there's also the 13% are in orbiting space stations around Earth or off-world colonies on other moons or other planets, or even beyond beyond the solar system. 13% are living in space, and they are not very happy either. But they're surviving, and they eat mush, and they're working with aliens a lot. And all these societies, except for the next one I'm going to talk about, have trade with aliens for resources constantly, and they're friends with multiple factions, many factions, because there's tons of different alien factions, of course. And they are friends, and they're teaching us, and they're giving us knowledge, and they're giving us technology. Does that sound familiar? There is, and then there's the primitive, isolated survivor communities, which is 28%, and they are, they're more horse and buggy, cowboy western style, but they're surviving, and they have some tech that they've stolen from finding it elsewhere, but they're overall pretty underdeveloped and just surviving more so. And the high-tech dome cities, by the way, are domed because everything outside of them is radiated from nuclear fallout, which they're insinuating, obviously, that there was a nuclear war at some point, and that probably was a big cause of this depopulation event. They also reference the pole shift as being another example, and I have complicated feelings on that whole thing. Watch hydroplate theory for an alternative explanation for magnetic anomalies. Talking too fast. Yeah. Yeah. And so, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But the dome cities are in nuclear fallout areas, and the survivor communities aren't in domed areas, but they're not being poisoned and dying from going outside their dome. They don't have a dome. So it's obviously calculated to certain areas where the nuclear fallout happened. It's not everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So they're telling a story with this information by doing this. And then 27%, the rest of them, happen to be in spiritual new age communities that are the happiest, the longest living, the best fed, the most community driven, and they all have psychic abilities and telepathic abilities. They communicate with aliens. They're all friends with aliens. They have pyramid-shaped schools where they teach kids to be telepathic. Gay. It's just a New Ager's wet dream. It is the perfect scenario for them.
Join the line and get your free mark today.
Right. And they're making everybody else sound like pretty lame and not ideal, because this is going to be the best one. So 27% of the subjects describe these communities with similar characteristics, very specific information. A lot of them describe androgynous genders with no genitals or intersex, and saying that gender's not really important. I don't know if that sounds familiar or if it sounds like a red flag to anybody. It does to me because I'm a man. Yeah, right. So yeah, man, it's consistent data coming to 350 people who've never spoken about this to each other, never met. So you go, oh, well, this has got to be somewhat accurate of a timeline because how else would so many people be saying the same stuff? And here's the other explanation. If you're a hive-minded, data-collecting, deceptive, elaborate, strategic group of entities, and you want to make people believe in this infinite consciousness can access the Akashic records of anything type belief system, this reincarnation-based framework, you would carry out these exact deceptions with data and strategically time things. Now, another reason I think it's all sketchy is because there is one part in the book where they talk about getting more data through different means, because obviously they're annoyed that only 5 to 11% of these people are getting data. So they're trying other ways to get more data, even though they're getting quite a bit, but they want more. So what they do is they ask people and prompt them, not everybody, but they prompt quite a few people to attempt, if they're like, okay, you can't find another life. Okay, that's fine. Try to see through somebody else's eyes and live their memories. And not all the time, but they get a hit quite often. And they will then live somebody else's life and see their memories and get data through them, but it won't count. It won't count as another life. So what's happening here is demons want to give them more data so that they can craft a story more accurately, but they don't want to give them too much bodies in the body count because then it makes it seem like the depopulation event isn't a steady narrative being created here. So they have to stay low on the numbers and make it seem like a gradual buildup. So it's strategy. So a lot of people see through others' eyes and Akashic Record style and will then share many details the same way. So that's already very sketchy because it's like, well, these aren't even your own memories and you're accessing them and feeling them and witnessing them as if they're your own, but you only know they're not your own because you were prompted in such a way. So it's very sketchy and it's creating a story, it seems, which is only 80 years away. I think there will be, if the Bible's not right and Jesus ain't coming back soon, then, the pole shift thing seems to have a lot of evidence, but there are some alternatives to that information happening. And I want to read some goofy quotes from this book because it's even sillier than the last one, I think. So I want people to understand this is what they have to believe if they want to believe in these future life regressions. Here's one quote. It says, nearly 60% of those participating in her research workshops reported that they had been ahead of her questions while in the light trance state. It soon became obvious that once in the dreaming mind, as she called it, many people could bypass the linear aspects of time and memory. Now, what this is telling you is whenever they're being prompted and the regressionist is asking, hey, travel to this time in your life. Okay, travel to this birthday and tell me what's happening. Okay, go to when you were married or something. When they're prompting it, instead of the vision forming right after it, sometimes the vision will start forming as they're saying it or right before within a second or two. And then you think, oh, it's because we're consciousness, we're connected. So, my consciousness already knows what she's about to say. Or a demon reading my thoughts in advance already knows what is going to be said and is crafting it in advance to make it seem much more genuine. It's strategy. It's within their capabilities for sure. So then you have another quote that says, most of these get-togethers seem to be positive occasions with the aliens providing advanced technical knowledge and spiritual wisdom. One report from 2100 AD mentioned contact with humanoids from a planet in the Pleiades star system. Oh, the Pleiades, you don't say. I've heard of them. Another one says, in deeper levels of trance, the subject takes on the emotional reactions of this alter ego to such an extent that he may temporarily lose awareness of his current identity. Or that can be read as, in deeper levels of trance and consent, the alter ego, the demon possessing you, is now getting more rights to take over and then, tell you their own story. That's what you could also reframe that as very easily. Another one is a routine of regular daily meditation, renewing contact with one's immortal soul and spiritual guides, practicing tolerance. These are the things that they promote. Don't know if that sounds familiar to you. Another one, anyone can discover they are a star person, a star seed. We're about to get into star seed lore in just a minute and see how problematic that stuff is. Another one says 51% reported using some kind of universal credit system based on one's signature or handprint instead of money. I don't know if that's Mark of the Beast normalization there, but it sounds something like it. With the and then you got oh, this one's fun. A man living on a space colony named Gaylord. I know that's a real name, but that's just silly to me. I don't
That's
know.
the guy from Meet the Fockers.
Fokker Gaylord. No, Gaylord Fokker? Yep. Is that what it is? There
Gaylord
we go. That's
Fokker.
I wish I could change my name right now. That's pretty good.
You're out of the circle of trust, fucker.
Oh my god. All right, we got a few more. They're so, I think, silly. I have to. So one says walk-ins are by no means limited to extraterrestrial spirits. They have voluntarily taken over adult human bodies with the full consent of their former soul inhabitants to help humanity make a critical transition. And I'm sure people have been deceived this way by demons by saying, hey, I'm here to take over your body to help people. Do I have your permission? I'm sure some losers have said, sure, why not? That's all it takes. As if you're told you're going to be possessed, it can be in whatever framework as long as you agree to it. And they say, oh, we're here to help. They in channeled lore, and I think raw material, they say Abraham Lincoln had a walk-in that freed the slaves. It wasn't Abraham Lincoln, but an alien soul that he agreed to let possess him to free the slaves. So thank you, spirits. You guys freed the slaves.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
You know,
about.
that's what I'm talking about. That's right. Thank you. And then another one says the youngest person reported dying as a young man at age 25 in a fiery crash between two spaceships off the planet Xenon in 2340 AD. That's a dumb planet name. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. A UFO experience can be both physical and psychic. It can also be usually deliberately educational. Oh, they're just trying to teach us things. Okay, well, don't worry about all the probing of my butt. I'll move over that real quick. Unable to detect any visible sex characteristics, such as breasts, he reported feeling that his body was essentially androgynous. Gender didn't seem to matter very much. I disagree, brother. Then you got... let's see. Here's a good one. Many reports coming from the individuals contacted by a group loosely known as the Space Brothers or the Ashtar Command. I didn't know. I mean, this is the 80s, back when Ashtar Command was still being used in channeled lore, but they've been made fun of for decades now as one of an obvious signs of a psyop to use those terms. As far as I've been,
in like the Ishtar.
It is suspiciously close, isn't it? But yeah, it's like Nordics. It's like Pleiadians. But they a lot of people have channeled them, and they say really stupid stuff. So yeah, here's another one. UFO connections have been received psychically by several hundred different individuals over the past 4 decades using names like Ashtar, Manka, or Hatan, purportedly the galaxy's record keeper, and referring to the same intergalactic hierarchical organization said to be headed by no less than Jesus himself. Also called Sananda by these sources. So they called Jesus a different name. So I guess you should pray to that guy, just in case. And he's leading the intergalactic federation of sorts. They don't call it that, but it seems to imply it. So thank you, Jesus, I mean Sananda, for your help. And then an advanced guard of this group known as Lightworkers is currently being prepared by UFO and other spiritual contacts. They will assist the Ashtar Command and his intergalactic fleet by shepherding those still unawakened but spiritually developed individuals to safe havens where the pickups can occur. Sounds like a cover-up for some sort of rapture. I don't know, and I don't believe in a pre-trib, but, you know, it could be an alien thing later that they use as a cover story. Amen. Here, Jan found that her present-day grown daughter will become her spouse in 2300 AD. More of that same gross soul incest stuff they're normalizing, and that's not okay. Another high-tech subject compared his future life to that of a conscious, intelligent machine, seemingly androgynous. Even his name, Synchrotron 2, was mechanical sounding. Nobody named their child, robot or not, Synchrotron 2. I don't buy it. I really don't. For convenience, I will use masculine pronouns for his story. These are the people we're dealing with. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Like, you have to, if you want to believe the future life progressions are legitimate data, you have to believe this other nonsense too, because it's all coming alongside it from the same contacts. I find it silly. I gotta hydrate, brother. Let me know if you want to rant about anything.
Oh no! Don't put me on the spot like that.
I did it. I just did it. You're on the spot now, brother.
Damn it! It's like I don't know what to do with my hands.
All right, you did great. That was perfect.
Hey, you get a thumbs up for me. Anybody in the chat that knows what movie reference that is? You got 30 seconds.
Hey, but that's great. So we're on star seeds now, and I know most people know what star seeds are, but for those who don't, a quick summary is they are largely documented in Dolores Cannon's work, I think more than anybody. So read her books if you want to find out more about it.
Spirit realm shenanigans. An unhinged rant exposing the...
There you
Beautiful.
go. Tara was asking what was your book name again. I was going to pull it up, and when I hit the back button, it replayed that again. So you heard it.
I love it.
Spirit world shenanigans.
Spirit realm, but you're close enough.
Spirit realm. Damn it.
Yeah. So yeah, starseeds are essentially they can be souls that are from alien extraterrestrial planets who are coming here to help us. They're all here to help us, but they're either souls from alien planets who incarnate here to help us specifically, or they are directly sent as a chunk taken out from Source. So they've never incarnated before, they never existed, and they're created by Source just to come here and help us and incarnate in humans. And there's another one like Godheads deploying multiple incarnations. It's a whole thing, but those are the main ones. And they have only started coming here since the 40s, apparently. Since 1940 is when they started. That was the first wave. Dolores Cannon talks about the second wave coming in the 60s and 70s, I think, or also 80s maybe. And then the last wave is like 80s, 90s to now. And each subsequent wave has an easier time adjusting than the last, apparently, because these are alien souls from better, perfect planets with no problems, so they don't understand us, or from Source, which never existed, so they have no frame of reference. But they do, and we'll get into that in a minute. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, and they will access this information via QHHT hypnosis often for Dolores Cannon. That is where you channel the higher self who will give you this information and share the memories directly, or, just other memories access. But this is usually channeled by your higher self, not a demon pretending to be your higher self, of course.
The God within.
Exactly. Yeah, and so here's a really sketchy thing about it. The starseeds will obviously be first time and one time incarnates here. They cannot incarnate again, or if they do, it's to help. They're not like going to get stuck in the reincarnation loop like we are. They have different rules. Now, they say that to come to Earth, because it's so hard to adjust here and we're so crazy and evil, which I don't doubt, they do the process to get them adjusted in advance to what they're coming into. Even though their memories are wiped anyway, it's more to embed their soul with kind of a underground, under the layer knowledge, which they can't even access fully, but it becomes a part of them, I guess. So what they call it is imprinting. And what happens is they will say that starseeds come here by going to the Akashic records before they incarnate and grabbing a handful of lives of other people, memories from other people, and then connecting it to them, downloading it to themselves, so that when they come to Earth, they have some sort of frame of reference to understand what's going on, even though they still have a hard time, apparently. So they download other people's memories so that they can feel the vibes out correctly, right? So whenever you get past life memories, so here's what happens. People will get past life memories, and then they will get a starseed memory later. So how did they coexist? If you only have one incarnation here, how are you getting past life memories on Earth? Oh, well, it's just explained away by imprinting. Those are the memories they grabbed from the Akashic records. Those aren't theirs, and they know this because their starseed contact, their higher self tells them, or downloads the necessary knowledge at the time into them. So I think that's just damage control because they messed up, and they have to account for these additive memories that are creating more lore. So this way you can marry the two concepts and go, no, it makes sense. But really, it's a little too sketchy, in my opinion, to just say, oh, yeah, I buy into it fully. I do not personally.
Just keep adding and adding to for all the transcrepancies.
No, absolutely. That's exactly what's going on here. Now, these people will also get memories of, planets, like the alien soul memories will get memories of their past lives on other planets. So they're like, see, that's not Earth, so it's okay. But I still came to Earth and downloaded Earth memories anyway, so it's weird. But they will describe, a couple things they describe is some like mermaid-type underwater cities, which is similar to the Water Kingdom stuff on Earth they talk about, will have they're perfect societies. They have no war, no conflict, no religion, just like a spiritual nature to them. They all have telepathic abilities on all these alien planets. They all have no crime, no suffering, a chill wave of vibes 24/7, regardless of what alien planet it is. And it is obviously impossible if they don't all have telepathic communication to this hive mind, which they all have a hive mind, but they make it seem like it's a good thing, you know? Kind of more normalization of the existence of demons into their hive mind, I think. And on an immediately wetter note is the Sirius colonies. These they talk about these underwater, aquatic advanced beings who are tall, slender, humanoid creatures with leathery skin, and they're androgynous, all of them, and they live up to 120 years, which is the specific number provided. Kind of a weird on-the-nose number that's very biblically connected, kind of a weird rebrand. Just putting it out there, these kind of biblical connections that they act like is nothing, but it's clearly on the nose. You know what I'm saying? And I just find it silly that all these alien planets are perfect, and that's why they're coming here to help us, because they're so perfect they need to share their vibes. And an explanation of how silly this is where one testimony in the book says, this is Canon talking, she says, "The second wave is now in their late 20s and 30s. They have made the transition to life on Earth much more easily than the first wave. The second wave souls tend to work behind the scenes, often on their own, creating little or no karma. In the sessions I conduct as a hypnotist, they have been described as antennas that unconsciously channel energy onto the Earth. They do not have to do anything. They just have to be. Their energy affects everyone they come into contact with. Their paradox is that they're supposed to be sharing their energy, but they don't like being around people." So this is telling you, you don't even need to be a good person. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to leave your house. You can just sit at home and access your past life memories and go out of body and do nothing for other people. And it's actually encouraged because all you have to do is exist. Just your vibes, your waves of energy you're emitting from your body is enough to do your job, which is weird because if they're such good people and here to help us, wouldn't they at least be like, hey, at least try to help people. At least try. No, just be by yourself and don't interact with people. Actually be a recluse and be antisocial and just keep reading crazy New Age lore until you become an insane person. So it's just a little bit hard to believe. Is it not? I don't know.
Oh, I concur.
That's right. That's
I
right.
want to believe
He's
it
not just
for my
saying that.
book collection.
That's what I always say, man. I believe every book I read. That's how I came to these conclusions. Well, no, the opposite, actually. Wait. Anyway,
Goodness.
so... Yeah, man. So that is all very silly to me, and I think they're just doing damage control with that lore because that's all that makes sense to me. Now, a reminder from episode 2, because we're talking about memories not belonging to you. Admittedly so, memories coming from other people. There's been many different types of admittances through this. The seeing through another eyes and the future life memories, that alone is sketchy. And it's all remote viewing style visions, which people still believe remote viewing is not totally hijacked by entities, but it is in my framework. So another thing is referencing back part 2. If you watch part 2, you saw the holistic healing, alignments and divergences from Dan Duvall's work and New Age spirit releasement therapy. And I'm going to reread a quote that I read then just because it's very important to remind you. This is what the New Age therapist says. William J. Baldwin in his manual book. He says, when a client discovers a disturbing memory, it can be a past life personality, but just as often, it is the traumatic death of an attached entity. Admitting to you again, if you don't get rid of spirit attachments first, which none of these regressionists and mass dreams of the future did, by the way, you are not going to get your past life memory often. You are going to get the past life memory of an attached entity, but you will relive it like it's your own, and you will feel like it's your own, and the only way you'll know the difference is if they tell you. And then imprinting other people's memories, and then seeing through another eyes, mass dreams of the future, other people's memories. But you can access it, and you feel like it's your own, you relive it like it's your own, but it's not. There's more in the Astral lore where I talk about the same concept of a guy reliving another lady's past life memories in the Astral hot tub, if you remember that. And he just did it by being near her, and he was sucked in without consenting to it, because they controlled the entire experience from an outside entity facilitated way. So there's 4, 5, 6 plus ways off the top of my noggin I can remember of other people's memories being relived, but you relive it like it's your own. That alone should be enough to warrant that the same thing is happening to these children, which is, within the framework I'm presenting here, totally possible. I hope that makes sense to people. It's just too many things. And then also, in this part 2, I talk about Carl Wickland's 30 Years Among the Dead. He says all past life memories that he accesses and other people do are from the ghost attachments. And then later, Baldwin's like, in the 80 years later, his work is like, no, some of it is, but reincarnation is still real. And this guy denied reincarnation and said, no, you just evolve to the spirit realms higher and higher. And he knows that not just because of his own experiences, but because entities told him. They will tell different people different things based on what they're willing to accept, and they don't care about diverging in logic because no one is going to cross-reference these things hardly at all. So it doesn't matter. It's more worth it to get different stories of different people. So there's too many divergences in logic to say this is all believable. And if it's real, if reincarnation is real, why are so many deceitful entities giving you fake visions to make you believe it's real? What is the point? I think of one explanation that makes sense, and that's the Bible's explanation for this. A great deception carried out by demons. That explains everything. That explains everything we're dealing with here in a logical way. Nobody else's framework has a complete explanation for everything, and if they do, they have yet to tell me. So hit me up, guys, haters. Let's see. How much time you think we got right now? What are you feeling?
Brother, I got nothing but time. You
I love it because
say what
I
you
always
need to say.
I always skip this part because it's not the most important, but I do like it, and everybody always is rushing me because I take 3 hours, 4 hours of their
Well,
time.
here you go,
So,
folks. You heard it here first. This is a
This is
Prometheus
new.
Lens exclusive.
That's
Here we
right. That's exactly right. Let's hope I remember what to say because I haven't even talked about this one yet, but we'll see. So there's this book. I'll give you a small little background on it. I spend 20 pages of my book breaking down a lot of lore in this book because it's totally deceptive in so many ways. It's called Initiation by I'm trying to remember what's her name. Elizabeth Hyach, Haich. Yeah, Elizabeth Hyach. And she is going through her book, basically telling her whole story of accessing her past life memories. And she accesses a lot of memories of this past life where she was a high priestess in Egypt, and her father was her father was the what is the king called? Their version of a king,
A pharaoh.
Shoot, yeah, he was the pharaoh. He was the pharaoh. Her dad was the pharaoh. Good for her. And he was the best father ever. She loved him. He was great. And her uncle was the right. Her uncle was
They're
the high
always
priest.
great, you know what I mean? It's like an ego
They're always
stroke.
they're
always
perfect.
Some princess or knight in shining armor. They're always something grandiose. It's like,
Yeah.
how come nobody gets a past life memory of being the pizza delivery boy at Domino's?
Yeah, I'm sure some people
the
do.
Pizza delivery boy matters too.
There's more him than high priestesses in Egypt, that's for sure. So that's her whole life as a high priestess, and her whole mission is getting initiated into the secret society. She wants to learn occult knowledge and get psychic abilities, and at first they're like, no, you're too young, you're just a woman, you have to first do a couple things, and she's like, no, I want it, and they're like, okay, fine, and they do it. And her whole book is accessing these these memories of her, gaining these powers. And it's a pretty well written book for the most part, but there's a lot of slop in it. Well, it's all slop, but it's well done relative to other sources. I spend a whole page in my book talking about how many people specifically claim to be a high priestess in Egypt. I collected, I think, over a dozen just in my book alone, but there's more out there. It's just how many are there that are accessing their past life memories in this life and collecting? It's just crazy. There is a lot of rebranding biblical cosmology and stories in this book. Like she'll go in to her past life memory, and in this past life memory, her uncle, who is the top spiritual leader in her area, is putting his hand on her head to get her to access Akashic records memories of the earth, not just of her, but of things that happen in the Bible, and giving a whole different story of what happened with Moses and Aaron, like giving totally similar stories, but it's rebranding it completely. And he'll do it by putting his hand on her head. So it's admitting your psychic impressions, your psychic access to knowledge can come from somebody outside of yourself, by the way, which is exactly what she did in her memory. So in her memory, she's going into a deeper memory, which is just like the astral lore. You're not really going into one into another. You're switching to a new vision, which is all controlled by these entities, strategically so. So let me just read the excerpt here. So she gets on near the end of the book. She goes on a vision quest ritual. Now, this is very crazy, and I've never heard some of these details shared by anybody else. Let me make sure I'm touching on it.
Drug-induced one, or is it like sleep deprivation or light deprivation?
It's going into like a coffin, like the freaking Skull and Bone Society, and fasting for days before,
Hell.
and then getting into a trance state, and then having an encounter with your spirit or something. I'll get into it in a second. Before I do, I want to read this excerpt, which is rebranding biblical terminology, very on the nose, and it says. But now, listen to the good news. Your body is the result of a separation. It is only the visible half of your own other true self. The other half remained in the unmanifested, unconscious part of your being. Not a demon, but part of you. By uniting these two complementary halves with each other, you can return to divine unity. You can expand your consciousness until you make the unconscious part of yourself, not a demon, of you completely conscious. Until you consciously experience the unmanifested, the invisible half of yourself, and in this way achieve divine unity with your consciousness, you can merge your consciousness, they keep saying it, with your own true self, out of which you have fallen. Thus forming the perfect unity. In this way, you can experience bliss, experience God, be God. You will achieve the unity with God and simultaneously with the entire universe. This means you will again be eating from the fruit of the tree of life. In short, you will have achieved your resurrection in eternal being, and that is initiation. So, that's taking Genesis 3:22, the tree of life thing, and really twisting it on its head, making it sound like it's a good thing. Oh, you need to unify with your unconscious manifested self, saying basically your higher self, who may or may not be a demon impersonating it, such asking you for consent to possess you by conjoining, by merging. That is the other side of this coin. In the Christian viewpoint, it is a demon trying to convince you they're a higher being. They're you're God. And if you connect to this, you can be part of God and you can feel great. And they can make you feel good, I'm sure, but it doesn't mean it's a good thing happening. And then another...
If that ever happens, guys, I'm going to tell you right now. I've heard it my whole life. It's like the cops showing up trying to buy pot from you when you was a teenager. You got to ask them. If they're a cop, they have to tell you. So ask them. If they're a demon, they have to tell you.
Yeah, I don't see... A lot of people don't question them, are you a demon? Because they don't believe in that, the New Agers types. But... I'm sure Dan Duvall might have asked the spirit he's channeled before, are you a demon? And they lie to him. I'm sure he has asked, but he doesn't seem to be open to the whole idea of demons impersonating characters, because then that means they're impersonating Jesus and angels, which he's channeling. So I feel like he doesn't ask that because it would be a red flag for him very quickly. So I don't know if that's a rule, but they definitely do their best to avoid that question coming up, no doubt. So... when it comes to the Vision Quest thing near the end of the book, this is what initiation is. It's going through this process. Now, this is initiation to a secret society, which many people have done, obviously, in real life. Is it exactly like this? I don't know. Maybe for some people, but what the story they're telling here is kind of a nightmare. So let me see what this covers. Yeah, okay. This is her uncle, the high priestess, explaining to her what's about to happen and what she needs to do, because she's about to get initiated officially.
Now, is this in the Egyptian past life?
Yes, this is in a past life memory. She's reliving this, and she gets into a deeper vision quest after this, which is all switching to a new vision. It's the same thing. Now she doesn't have autonomy. This is all memory, so they can control your autonomy and make it just a memory if they want, and obviously give you autonomy in the astral to certain degrees. So her uncle's talking to her, explaining what's about to happen. Her uncle, the high priestess, says, "Remember very carefully what I'm telling you now. When you become conscious in one octave in vibration, you are in tune with this frequency, and its whole sphere represents absolute reality for you." Saying you're about to go into a simulation. It's going to be fake. He's telling her it's going to be fake. But if you get lost in it and think it's real, you can get stuck there. And I'll just read it. He says, when you have passed the test in 1 degree, because there's going to be multiple tests in a row in different simulations. When you pass the test in 1 degree, you will awaken in the next sphere and realize you are only dreaming in the level below. This sounds a lot like episode 1, the astral travel lore at the beginning I talked about with Kurt Leland's escape room. Same concept here. But if you don't pass the test, that is, if you identify yourself with the events and don't succeed in remaining to master all of them, all of these dream pictures will remain real for you, and you'll have to experience all of them to the very end as real events in the world of time and space. That would mean your body would have to die here in this coffin, and you would have to go on dreaming your own dream pictures in countless reincarnations on the long path of mortal existence for many thousands of years, while you gradually struggled upward from this lower level to which you have fallen. Pausing real quick. He's saying you're going to get tested in like 7 dream simulations, and if you get stuck in them and think they're real in real life, they will become real life, and you will have to reincarnate in this fake dream reality simulation forever until you figure it out. Now they want the reader to read this and question, oh my God, am I in that fake reality now? Do I have to wake up? Do I have to go out of body to figure this out? They want you to question your own reality and make you think it's all pointless. It's so like diabolical, man. But they're saying you can get stuck in a fake dream for thousands of dream years and it will feel real and you'll die in this coffin and you'll incarnate in a fake realm that doesn't exist except in your own head. That's what they're saying is true. Okay. So keep that in mind. So then he says, every dream is a reality as long as you believe it to be real. When you pass all the tests, you experience all the lives that you would have to experience as a fallen soul on Earth. Free of time and space, you experience them as dreams, awakening on the next level of consciousness. Finally, you awaken on the 7th level, in this the cosmic consciousness of the self, whatever that freaking means. In this divine state, you become one with the last and highest and only reality, with yourself, with God. You merge with God himself, not a demon. This is no longer an awakening, but a resurrection. That's great terminology to use. So yeah, it's not something I hear often, the whole you'll get stuck in a fake world for thousands of years. I've never heard that anywhere else. I'm sure other people have talked about it, but this is what it takes to be initiated. You have to go to these dream tests. And, I spent a few pages breaking down the actual tests she goes through, and it's basically a demon coming to her. And then in the first test, it's a demon coming to her and telling her, you're part of me, like I'm with you and blah, blah, blah. And, you can't escape me, and making it sound evil. And then she's like, no, you're not part of me. You're part of my lower self. I need to access the higher self, which is totally different guy. And he's like, no, you got me because you accepted that I'm not part of you. And he like does this fade out echo routine where he's like, no. And then the next phase starts. But it's all entity facilitated visions, but you defeated him by recognizing the truth, apparently. And then she's dancing with a man in some no, she's going to a room where everybody's partying in the second test, and everybody's dancing, and everybody's like having a good time, and she's like looking at everybody's like they're stupid. And then she gets a man come up to her trying to dance with her, and she's like, no, you're just a man. I need to connect with my spirit, with my soul, with my higher self. I don't need any love in this earth plane. I'm celibate. And then she passed the test, and that was the test, something like that. And then it goes on for a couple more, and it's just eventually at the end, she ends up reuniting with her soul and becomes part of God because she passed the vision quest. It's very elaborate and stupid, and I don't think people understand this is what is coming out of past life memories in great detail.
It's very Gnostic, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You're escaping the prison planet, and you are a shard from the whole. You have a spark of the divine, and therefore by going through these tests, it's an alchemical change. You're purifying that essence of God and returning it back to him, I mean?
It's all very nice sounding on the surface. Yeah, if you're just dipping your toe in this stuff and you hear that, it sounds nice. It sounds fun. Like I got pulled into it for a little bit. But when you really deep dive into it, there's a lot of mental gymnastics you have to do to justify all the very obviously deceptive entities involved. And if they're deceiving me, telling me the same stuff that I think sounds so nice and Gnostic, if it's true, why are they going through great lengths of lies to get me to that truth? It's not. It seems like a bad sign. Now we're going to move on to some crazier stuff, believe it or not, and that is the somehow largely ignored secret space program lore, which is some of the craziest stuff you will ever encounter. I don't know how aware are you of what they say about secret space program and what goes on there?
I'm completely ignorant.
Really? Okay, a lot of people are, dude, and I get why. It's like a lot, but if you reverse engineer the lies coming from this baloney, it can tell you a lot. And I'll just give a 1,000-foot overview of what's going on in it, and the details are really out there, and I'll try to share a few. But Secret Space Program is apparently a program, a black project that started, a couple decades ago, and there's apparently different people doing their own operations of it. There might be a couple groups doing their own versions, but it's where they find people for hire, or they'll force people into it, or they'll get military people to agree to joining this program. And in this program, apparently, according to dozens of whistleblowers, I've read, there's multiple books on this. There's many interviews. It's like a couple dozen people doing a bunch of interviews. I've listened to over 60 of them at least, and I've read 2 or 3 books on it. It is crazy. They say that they are chosen to time travel into the future and then or time travel into a future timeline that may or may not come to pass. And they work in this timeline for usually 20 years. Because if they stay any longer, their brain will be scrambled to bits, apparently. So some people do 60 years, but it's mostly 20. And after 20 years of very hard, usually slave-like labor, very awful stuff, traumatic stuff, they will be time shot back into where they left. Because what happens is they're signing an hour's worth of contracts, which they don't read, consent. They're signing all these contracts, and they are going into a pod, and in that pod is where they time travel. But they come back 15 minutes later. So 20 years pass, but they come back to the same pod and 15 minutes passed, and they apparently are age regressed as well. So they aged, they physically went there. It's not, but other people like Dan Duvall say, no, it's their soul fragment who went to the future, so their body stayed there and didn't actually travel. But the other people say, no, my body went and then they age regressed me. I'm like, well, which is it? But Dan Duvall supports secret space program lore as well, which is not very Gnostic. So they worked for 20 years on interplanetary, agreements with aliens. They work with the Nordics a lot. They do mining on moons, like resource mining. They rescue slaves from reptilians on other planets. They do all these missions, right? And they're not getting all 20 years of memories. They're getting gaps and pieces, whatever creates a narrative that they want to spin. So here's why it's problematic. Well, there's many reasons, but here's what's going on. If someone comes to, a lot of them are MK Ultra SRA survivors, right? A lot of these people who have these memories. And if they want to disqualify everything they're saying, okay, let's give these people a crazy SSP memory or a moon trip memory or a water kingdom memory, which we'll hopefully get into in a minute. And we give them these crazy memories, so anybody who hears it will go, oh, that's obviously fake and they're insane people. But there's many people saying the same stuff, keep in mind. So that gets people to not believe it. All of it. All the SRA abuse, everything. Or you believe all of it and take it all on board, which makes you a Gnostic, basically, because it's a lot of Gnostic lore. So it's a win-win for the agenda, because either way, you're deceived, unless you believe the narrow road of, no, it's a fabricated memory for disinformation purposes, which is what I'm pushing. Now, so these people are time shot, they're age regressed. It's I don't believe in time travel. Part 4, if we do, is a time travel debunk. I'm going to do my best with that. It'll be ready like in a week or 2. But they want you to believe in time travel because
dare destroy my Back to the Future fantasy.
I'm sorry, but somebody had to do it, man. It's dude, they're gonna push. I think they're really gonna push the whole alternate. They're gonna push the many timelines, and we're at a conjunction of time where our collective decisions as humans is gonna guide us to one timeline or the other. And they might say, like they have in various lore, that the Nordics are from the good timeline or the really spiritual timeline, and then the Greys are us from the materialist scientific timeline where we went too hard that way, and we got to pick which side we want. We're probably going to pick the sexy Nordics or something in between. That's maybe because they're both problematic. I don't know, but they're pre-programming that lore in quite a bit of ways with the timeline war stuff. So I think we need to debunk it. So the secret space program lore, which is downloaded memories, in my opinion, promotes time travel, promotes age regression technology. Maybe we got some stuff to keep us young, but I don't think they can age regress us. I think they can clone us. That's different. Now, they only have they go out, they time shoot in the future, 20 years, boom, you're back 15 minutes later. And they don't have immediate memories. They say their memories are wiped also with technology immediately. But they come back, when they come back out of this pod, they immediately feel sick and very, very, very like dizzy, nauseous. They feel like very traumatized. They don't know why. What I think is going on is they're getting into a pod that gets them to the perfect trance state, and then an entity is doing the heavy lifting, not technology, and they're leaving you a lot of loose ends of feelings, like a lot of impressions, downloads of impressions. You just signed a bunch of contracts, literally, and they're leaving you with impressions to be confused but not understand what's happening, but leaving you with a desire to go, I want to know what's happening. And then over the years, these memories of SSP aren't with you immediately. They come back over years through meditations, regressions where you're trying to access them, through meditations, through dreams and visions. This is how they're coming back, just like every other past life memory, just like everything else. Same mechanism. You're accessing these SSP memories, right? And I'll get into some of the lore they say in a minute, but it's the same mechanism and has similar lore. Many aliens, many factions, life everywhere, work for resources, good, bad factions. It's not all just one unified deceiver, like Christians would say. So here's some of the crazy things that you have to believe if you want to believe these SSP memories. And if you think they're crazy and fake, then what does that say about the nature of implanting memories? Here's one thing. The Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, which is also something in a movie they've used, the ICC is a breakaway consortium of Boeing and Lockheed type companies, and they abduct humans for slave trade to hundreds of ET species in exchange for not currency exactly, but exotic tech. Interesting. I thought all these aliens were advanced enough they didn't need to keep doing that, but human slave trade, which I'm not saying it's above them. I'm sure they would do things like that, but I don't think they're allowed to do that, and also can because there's not other factions out there doing this. That's what I believe. So, and SSP memories have people rescuing these slave traders, and we'll get into testimony of that in just a minute. Another thing is that many World War II Nazis escaped to Antarctica, allied with Draco reptilians, and still operate its own interstellar military and trade fleet using human slaves. But these aren't the Nordics. This is like a different group. This is like the proto-Nordics, maybe, before they time traveled into the past and evolved for 250 million years, like Jason Giorgiani says. Jason Giorgiani, who's an asshole and trusts everything that remote viewers tell him. I'm not sorry. That guy's mean to me. So whatever. I'm over it, clearly. But he does not agree with me, that's for sure. But another thing is
confusing for me, man.
It's very
so
confusing.
Much to keep up with, so much to remember, and then, like you said, they contradict each other, and
yeah,
it's a lot.
I'm just trying to do a summarized breakdown of showing the clear like kooky stuff happening, and also the clear admittance of deception, because they basically flatly admit it in many ways with these impressed memories and like incongruence or incompatibilities between different lore. There's just too many. And there's more. I'm just doing my best to summarize what I can today. But the SSP stuff is super elaborate, super crazy, and takes a lot of work to understand. I'm just giving you a couple of the crazy nuggets so people understand this is what they're telling people. And this is what dozens and dozens of people are getting matching memories of. So it's either real or it's fake and implanted. So yeah, here's another thing is the moon. Inside it is a giant central hub called Lunar Operations Command, LOC, that functions as a multinational and diplomatic spaceport with segregated zones for rival human factions and ET groups. So they all, politely enough, work in the same space inside the moon, but they're all, warring factions, but they work inside the moon together, all these different alien factions and humans. So that's just another thing you have to believe. And apparently ultra-terrestrials, which is different from ETs, it's, they're higher level ascended master types, but like high level entities, raw material would call them 6 density wanderers or something. They have, or 6 density beings. They apparently established in the last few decades a giant barrier or shield around the solar system, which is protecting us from reinforcements of aliens coming in. Because there's so many out there, they can just bring in tons, so they just block them out. And it's keeping the ones that are already inside from leaving. The whole point of saying this is so we have a fair chance of fighting off the aliens. Because anybody who believes in this multiple factions, infinite life, they're like, how can we compete with all these alien factions? Oh, because the shield protects us. The shield from the ultra-terrestrials that are helping us. Thank you.
Trump went into the future and made that celestial wall. He's going to make our universe.
No, literally. Again. They talk about, bro, I was just about to talk about Trump and the SSP stuff because it is connected very heavily. Yeah, and remind me to go back to this Jason Sands material in just a second, but I guess I'll do a rant real quick.
That's what happened to Obama, or not Obama, Biden. He tried to go in the future and help out, and it just scrambled his brain,
You're trying your best, but it never feels like enough.
Yeah, I believe that story more than others I've heard about him, that he's just from the future and he's just doing his best, but he's got that old, feeble, time-scrambled brain from alternate timelines. Makes sense. So yeah,
Donald had to go and show him up too, so...
Yeah, right. Actually, before I do the Donald Trump thing, because it is very important right here, I'm going to do this in order. I wanted to read a little excerpt, which is important because... This is from Jason Sands, who I have nothing but nice things to say about. He's a good guy. He, I think, is deceived by these false memories, but he was forced to be part of the SSP program. He only talks about the specifics of his memories in one space, he says, and that's a Doom room he did with Fringe, who I'm a big fan of. She knows that. and Fringe and Doomer Daddy Ulrich in the Doom room, some homies, and they question him on the SSP stuff, and it is very insightful, some of the language he uses. So he only shared this one time, and so if anybody would like the space, let me know and I'll message them it. But Jason's talking about his secret space program type missions, such as eliminating reptilian groups with advanced guns and rescuing humans off planet, part of the slave trade, and more crazy stuff. But Fringe asks Jason if these missions have any dream-like material or non-physical / astral elements to them. Is there anything like that part of these memories? Or like any drugging, trance states, etc. And he says there's no drugging involved. It's more like paralysis and, quotes, the ability for some of these NHI to kind of switch you off. All I remember is being in one place at one point where I was in my bed or in a facility and having some awareness, and then being switched off. Next thing, I'm in a helicopter, another kind of conveyance, or it was an NHI craft. I think sometimes that was the case. I was in one of them, and I'd be switched on, and I'd already be moving towards the objective. And somehow, telepathically or mentally, I already had a picture in my head telling me where to go, what the first objective was, what I was supposed to do. The only part where I had more freedom was the actual hand-to-hand combat. So, he's telling you these entities, while he's in the SSP program, are constantly switching his consciousness on and off, and also switching him on as he's already moving towards targets, which means they already were possessing your body and controlling it, and then they just choose to give you awareness at this random point so that you do the heavy lifting, but they already were possessing you, so like why do they need you to be active for this? I don't know. Is it to tell a story? Maybe. So, and then he says the only part where he has freedom is hand-to-hand combat, which means he's guided and pushed and intuitively guided, just like the astral travel lore, same thing. He is guided towards these things and then has a little bit of autonomy that they gift him with because they can control that. And then boom, he's fighting and it's all theatrics anyway. And he wins, obviously, every battle he's in. So you get a bat 1,000 in these situations. And he says they're constantly switching him on and off. And then he says, or soon after that, Fringe says she's been in similar scenarios and asks if he knows if he was in his body. He says, whether I was in my body or an avatar, I couldn't tell you. Also, when I felt pain, it was real pain. Well, feeling pain doesn't mean it's real, because people in dreams and in these scenarios in past lives experience pain when they relive it. It doesn't mean it's real. It's the sensation they can create. Death and dismemberment ritual.
So eerily close to a biblical verse too.
What's that?
Remember, Paul was talking. I can't remember what book it was in. But,
oh gosh.
He said, "I traveled to the second heaven. I don't know whether it was in spirit or in body." Or he was talking about a friend, but he was talking about a scenario where someone went to the second heaven, but he didn't know if it was in spirit or in body.
That's a great note, because the fact that they don't know means that it feels so real you can't tell the difference, which is fully backed up in part 1 astral material, where I say no matter where they go, they can make it feel realer than reality. Even when it's an admitted simulation, they will say it's so real I get lost in it. My lucidity is so low I forget where I'm at. I think it's a past life memory. That's what they constantly say. Really, they're just messing with their lucidity in the simulation so that people think, oh, it's just my lucidity being jacked with there, and that makes everything else real. It's strategically done, in my opinion. So yeah, he says he doesn't know if he's in his body or not, or an avatar, which important note. And then regarding the memory of these events in general, he says it's pretty fragmentary because of all the turning on and off. So it's all entity facilitated here, admittedly so. Is it real places he's going to, or is he being shown fake visions, fake astral simulations to guide him into believing that there's multiple alien factions, warring factions that are all across the world, human slave trade, which we need to save them. That's what we're here to help. We're here to help them. The Nordics are here to help, which is what we're doing the jobs with. It's creating a narrative that is very anti-biblical and Gnostic and promotes the literal alien theory, but there's very little evidence that, or no evidence that I can think of that isn't simulation-based potentially, that proposes that aliens are literal aliens from other planets as opposed to demons in meat suits carrying out a deception. So there's no real tangible evidence we have other than these experiences, which could be totally fabricated. What is the Bible saying? Jeremiah 14:14, Jeremiah 23:32, Deuteronomy 13:1-3, Ezekiel 13:6-7. Look at those verses. You'll see false dream, false vision, false divination, a lie, useless. The Bible tells you that these things are possible. You just don't get the details, so you don't understand how deep it goes. But I'm telling you, this is what it's talking about. So that's SSP lore from Jason Sands. Very good guy, but deceived, and that's why he's allowed to speak on Joe Rogan, I think, because he does not hurt the narrative at all with his belief system. But he's a Christian, just, kind of more expansive style, and, I'll be praying for you, bro. But check this out. It's easier he has a lot of trauma from these things, rightfully so, but I feel like a lot of it would be easier to clear up if you understood what was really going on here.
Jack
but yeah.
is complimenting how pretty you look today.
Oh, I thank you, Jack. I washed my hair yesterday. I timed it for this podcast. I didn't. Otherwise, I'd be all nasty looking and greasy. I still am a little greasy, but like more manageable. Thank you. I feel pretty. Thank you.
Manly greasy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nothing wrong with a little bit of that. So we're almost done with SSP lore, but I do need to do a quick rant. That is probably the craziest element, well, in a way, of the SSP lore is pretty much all of these sources that do these interviews and books all name drop Donnie T, the man in the White House. They all name drop Trump and say that he specifically is a white hat, just like the QAnon lore, same thing. Says he is a white hat working with the Nordics. His administration is working with the Nordics and fighting for disclosure. They've been saying this for years, for I think a decade. They've been saying this for about a decade, the QAnon type stuff, saying that he's playing 5D chess, which would go, oh, well, then his relationship with Israel is just him keeping his enemies closer. It's a game he's playing. That's the story they're brewing here. And I think that they're putting that vibe out in the actual narrative of things very well. Like the whole contentious relationship him and Netanyahu seem to have, it seems to be all a game. And I think they want you to believe that, obviously. But they're all on the same side as far as I see it. But in these memories, people say that they find out Donald Trump is working with the White Hats to work for disclosure and do the right thing, and he's actually a good guy. Now, if anybody still believes that, they might have to get their head checked, because that is clearly not going too well. Unless the 5D chess is super elaborate and going to be a huge payoff someday soon, I don't know. Now, I feel like I'm missing something. Seth. Oh, okay, sure. Okay, I'll do that.
Trust the plan.
Done. I didn't know it was that easy. Okay, I'll trust it. Anyway, so that whole thing, when I saw that lore there, that's when I started to think, oh my God, is this the Antichrist? Are they creating lore to defend the Antichrist? For any deep conspiracy researchers, who are the main enemy of the Antichrist? The people who are going to discover his identity are the deep conspiracy researchers who will come across this lore possibly, and then boom, go, oh, well, okay, it's 5D chess. It's what the QAnon bullshit says. It's the same thing, because they're pre-programming that in these elaborate memories that, oh, well, dozens of people have them, so it must be true, right? But no, they're creating a counter-intel campaign and protecting their asset, which is this guy. Now, and I, in my book, I write how I think he's the guy, and this was over a year ago when I, was writing this. But as of late, with the things going on and his name being dragged to the mud ridiculously so, I'm thinking, oh my God, is he like the John the Baptist for the guy, and he's paving the way, which he clearly is prophetically, but is he set up as the fake villain to be defeated by the real AC, who might be some Pleiadian Jesus or Nordic alien or something, who is going to destroy the NWO, destroy the beast system, and use the technology probably for their own reasons. But it seems like he's being set up for this great defeat. But I don't know. It could be some Phoenix Rising from the Ashes moment where he's the guy. Because all the lore...
Everybody, I'm like, he's not the Antichrist. And the reason why I can tell you that is because too many people hate him. It talks about the Antichrist is like everybody.
Enough people loved him for a time to where it might fill into the scripture, because he had enough love for quite a bit. And there is a lot of scripture that is seemingly on the nose that connects him to the guy. Quite a number of things, which I record in my book. Actually, I compile a list of as many as I can. And I made the case. And here's the thing. I wrote that in my book, and I'm willing to admit I was wrong. Totally so. But it seems like they, with the whole Tucker thing and him saying, oh, I never said that. And then it went viral, which he's an asset. He's absolutely playing a game here. They want you to think it's your idea, and they're kind of guiding people to him being the AC lately, which is making me question it more than ever. And now I'm like, well, he might be the villain set up to be defeated by the guy, and then that's the guy. Which is probably an alien or fake alien. That's what I'm leaning towards now, but I'm open to being one way or the other, because the amount of correlations are insane. But if I guess you wanted to make a fake Antichrist, you would kind of work very hard to make sure there is a lot of seeming connections to scripture, which there is. There's quite a few.
Yeah, but like I mean, all the policy he's passed, and the Palantir and all the stuff that he's pushing is definitely like a John that is, paving the
Yeah,
way,
it's fulfilling
setting up the
prophecy in a lot of
ends.
ways. Yeah, and maybe the AC will take over the system, but use the devices for good that they've already set up, by the way, just in time. Yeah, I'm open to being that. But when I saw that SSP drop of his name constantly, I thought I was like, oh my God, this is perfect way to cover for the Antichrist, to give him like, diffuse the people naming him. But now it's like 5D chess, where it's like, well, maybe that was actually to make you think that at the same time for any schizos like me, and it's like snip, snap, reverse psychology. Who knows? But they do name him, and he is an important character according to them, him and his administration. So very strange stuff. Said to be working with the Nordics. Who knows if they'll fulfill that prophecy they've set out? But it is very
You put out
interesting.
That picture the other day, him walking on the tarmac with an alien.
Dude, people are like, "Is this real?" And I'm like, "Are you?" He's not even. No, it's not real. He posted like 25 AI photos that day, but he is kind of like leaking this idea. And I liked how it was like a gray alien, a tall gray, not like a Nordic or something. I thought that was funny because I'm like, if he is the fake Antichrist and he's supposed to be defeated, then they're gonna say that our administration is working for the bad cop aliens, which is gonna be the Greys and the Mantis and the Reptilians, and they're gonna have this faction thing, man. And the Nordics are the good guys. So it seems like that could be the route they're going. I don't know. There's a few ways they could go with it. But yeah, man, I got some more crazy stuff to talk about. We're coming up on an end soon-ish, within the hour, I imagine. But I got to do a couple more crazy, elaborate reverse engineering of some psyops here. And one is my labs. Do you know anything about military abductions, my lab stuff? Oh gosh. Okay. Well, it's a nightmare. It is basically a lot of people claim to get memories of being abducted by military operations using like portal technology to the room, and they'll grab them. Not aliens.
Okay, I've heard some stuff like that. Just maybe not in that kind of context, but like I'm trying to think. Karen Wilkinson. And
Maybe
her,
she talks about it, I don't remember.
testimony. She talked about being abducted and all this other kind of stuff. But she said
By military operations.
But in one of them, she remembers. She said, I was underground. She said, and I was in this room.
Yeah.
She said, and I looked up. She said, and I could see in the window there were some people up there. She said, in military uniform. She said, but I was in there with the aliens. She said,
Yeah, the aliens are there.
working together.
They're working. Yes, they're working in conjunction. I was going to say. Now, did she mention anything about being interrogated or questioned by them?
No, I think she was saying that was like the first like sexual encounter that she had with her handler. That this tall Nordic kept taking her and building rapport with her, and then one day she's in that room and he straps her down to a bed there and rapes her with the people in the military uniforms in the window watching from above.
Yeah, that sucks. Well, Karen, if you're listening, I have some potentially good news, because I believe those are implanted memories, probably. I'm not saying everybody who's taken by the government to an underground lab and getting assaulted, I'm not saying they're all fake, but when you get a military abduction with these aliens there and they question you, like I'm about to get into the questions they ask because I think it's very insightful to what's going on here. They're building a story in this stuff with this. It's always happening to people who just got abducted by real aliens, they say. And then afterwards, as if they're different factions and not working together, which they clearly are, they will question them and ask questions about basically the aliens that abducted them and about what happened. And it's kind of silly, honestly, the way it goes. So here's some of the questions that they are asked according to the book, My Lab's Military Mind Control and Alien Abduction by Helmut and Marion Lammer, which compiles dozens of experience or testimonies from the 90s onward, framing this as a joint human ET op rather than like solo alien gigs. And some of the interrogators ask questions like, what did they show you? Did they mention timelines or bases, any implants? So first of all, even though you're memory erased or, in a drugged up kind of trance state while abducted, they're asking you specific questions as if, sometimes the aliens do share disinformation with people in recovered memories, which may or may not be fake, some of them. And I believe all this stuff's real, and physical and astral abductions are real, but I think the astral ones and the regression access to memory ones often, not always probably, but often are used for fake memories planting disinformation, which, yes, will have a lot of bad things happen to them, and they admit to that because it's strategically smart, because otherwise it will veer too much from the actual memories that people recover, and it's confusing. So we're not going to worry about that right now. the MyLabs memories, they will ask about timelines, and I'm like, first of all, the timelines thing is part of the narrative they're trying to sell us on. And why would you know about anything worthwhile sharing of timelines and bases that you could share with these people from an abduction where you're getting probed and taken for hybrid breeding and stuff? I don't know how they think you would have anything worthwhile. They also ask, what do the aliens tell you for their plans for Earth? As if you don't already know. First of all, you can all time travel to the future, so you already know what the timeline, even multiple timelines plans are. There's no way they don't know. And they're all working together, first of all, so they're creating this idea of multiple factions. Or did they give you any messages for the government of world leaders? Okay, now it's like we're watching like a really corny alien movie from the 60s. It's like this is not going to yield them any fruit of real information from these people. And they're asking questions to make you think that they don't understand what each other's intentions are. We don't know what they're doing. We have no idea. We as humans have quite a clue of what's going on because there's enough information out there. How do they not know? They're planting a narrative, it seems. Then there's describe any devices or symbols they showed you. Do you know what they do? Are you aware of any foreign objects in your body from them? You know, what is symbols? Kind of close to sigils. What does that have to do with anything here? Isn't that unrelated to secular extraterrestrial life? I don't know. It seems like a little strange. They also said, did they mention other groups or beings, reptilians, Nordics, anything like that? Or what year or place did they say they came from? You don't even know what like area these aliens are from, but we're having constant interactions with them, and there's I don't know. It just all the aliens abductions seem to be hybrid breeding related or narrative creation with the whole reasons why they're here. They're star seeds. They manipulate you, gain more consents. They seem to be, and then programming people with certain belief systems. They're acting like there's all these different various types of things happening, but it's really just the hybrid breeding program, which seems to be the main thing. And they're acting like they don't know what their plans are. And it's just like, I don't
all over again.
Yeah, I don't buy that these aliens don't know what's going on, even if they are different factions. It doesn't, it just seems too on the nose of like, because then you get this memory and then you go, oh my God, there must be multiple factions. Oh my God, there must be, government working with aliens, and there's all these different sorts of groups and they don't know what each others are doing. So it's all an intel gathering operation. And it's like, that's the narrative that you come back from that story with. Is it disinformation so that you believe that and expand your cosmology? Well, if I were the demonic agenda, if I were working for them, this is exactly the type of thing I would do. So I like to think if this is what's happening in your MyLabs memories, it's narrative creation. I don't think they are probably legitimate. And it's also a huge, huge bad return on investment for them to abduct people with portal technology into their rooms and physically take them there and then do all these things to them in these underground bases and risk getting caught just for the worst intelligence gathering operation of all time, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just when they can more easily just implant false memories. So I think that is what's going on. It's timeline war pre-programming as well, which is very important to the coming narrative. Yeah, man, it's kooky stuff.
It's a deep well for sure.
Yeah, man, and I think I'm the only one saying this stuff to this degree. I haven't heard anybody else share it, so I tried to use parts 1 and 2 as like bedrock framework for this stuff, and I hope it makes sense. But I know it gets very elaborate and all over the place, and I talk fast, but got to get a lot out there. I'm on the last subject matter here, which is I've had updates from since then. This is something not in my book, which I wish I had it in because it's interesting, but I'll share. I don't know if I should name drop. I already have a couple times, but I won't today. I got in an email chain not too long ago with one of my heroes.
How dare you give me an exclusive and then deny me here?
I've already said it. I'm not talking crap at all. I'm just kind of politely disagreeing. I guess I'll say it's no big deal. I'll do it. I'm in touch with one of these people, so they're friends. We're homies now. So Emma Catherine, the Imagination podcast, host, great girl, angel sent from God. I love her to death. I've watched a lot of her stuff to learn about SRA and MKU stuff. She has the biggest compilation of testimonies out there, and she's doing great work. Now, I reached out to her a couple weeks back because I wanted to come on her show, and I know she doesn't really have many people on just to talk about theories and ideas, but she has before, and I thought it's worth a shot because this concept is very important, and I wasn't sure how aware she was of it. So I do a little rant in my email, and even if she doesn't want to have me on, I just want to talk to her and just be like, hey, do you understand this stuff? Like, it's kind of important because you're part of the, healing of these people who are dealing with these memories of SSP and, crazy stuff. Not all of them, but a lot of them are MK Ultra, right? And SRA abuse. And I'm not saying those are fake at all. I'm just saying they open you up to fake memory downloads. So it's a mixture. So I offered the idea of demons downloading fake memories, and I think that the SSP stuff is, and the MyLabs is, and obviously reincarnation memories and so on. And I was like, do you believe in... You don't believe in those memories, right? Like, you're a Christian. And I was asking what she thought. And she got offended and kind of went off on me. And I respect her. She has good intentions here. But she kind of went
failed way to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to be detailed, and I was, but it's not ideal. So I very polite conversation. Just, she was upset by my accusations, and she says, no, it is impossible for demons to implant false memories. That does not happen. And she's a Christian. I don't know if she's an expansive type Christian who believes a lot of the crazier stuff, but I think she's more grounded. But she's a good person, and she said that's impossible. And I said, well, it's actually pretty much verifiable in the framework of my, first 2-3 parts. I asked her to please watch them and be open-minded about it and reach out to me if she's interested. But she was like, oh, I've been fighting against these foundations who literally their whole thing is memory implantation or fake memories or crazy people, explains all this. And she says she's been fighting them for years. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's all fake. Because those people are saying the abuse is fake and the SRA is fake and that's not real. And I'm not doing that. I'm saying that opens you up to these. And I'm not saying they've never given you a torturous fake memory of abuse that was, obviously not true. I'm sure they have. Does that account for most of this? No, I don't think so. I think if it serves their purposes. So I asked if she studied reincarnation lore, because if she believes those memories are real, then she has to believe reincarnation memories are probably real, which instantly devaluates her faith kind of. And I was just like, you can implant these memories in regression, and people access other people's memories all the time. Just look at the research I've done. And she said she would, but I don't think she did, because I haven't heard back from her. And I asked her if she thought SSP, Water Kingdom, moon trips, all that stuff was real. And she said, no, I don't think it's all real. I don't know which part specifically she was referring to, but it insinuated quite a bit of it. And she said, no, there's another explanation that accounts for all this. And I said, I'd love to hear it. And her explanation for all these memories, not reincarnation, because she doesn't have any research there, she said, but for the SSP stuff, was actors in projects, black projects, where they have actors, scripts, narratives, props, and so on, acting out scenes to give it to an experiencer who is drugged up or in some trance state, and then it just getting hit with all these situations, which, by the way, doesn't make sense because they have full autonomy. And, like, one example is in the SSP...
One thing I was going to tell you, dude, it triggered in my head. I just actually read about this. It was in this... Robert Seffer, Occult Secrets of Vril.
The Vril,
There's a guy, cannot remember his name, but he was one of, like, the original, remember the game, the Assassin's Creed?
Yeah.
Remember
no, well, maybe a little bit. I don't remember.
Assassins that lived up in the mountains, and they called it the Eagle's Nest, and they were trying to find that golden apple. It was based off of this guy. He was a historical guy, and he made a League of Assassins. And what he done that, and it's historically documented.
Oh, really?
He made a pleasure garden, right? And it was like restricted off from the rest of the recruits, and he filled it full of beautiful virgins, every kind of exotic fruit tree you can think of. It was like Eden. And when he would bring people in, initiates or whatever, and they'd go to try to sign up to be a part of this, Assassin's Creed, he would give them all kinds of opium and stuff, and they would smoke it and take whatever drugs and get in this, lucid state or whatever, and then they would whisk them into this secret garden like Eden, and when they, kind of come to, they're in this beautiful Eden garden, and they have all these virgins, these women come in, and they're feeding them grapes and pleasing them sexually, doing all these things for them.
Nice.
And then they had actors, people that come in and acted like, they were angels and stuff, and give
them
I've
heard of stuff like that.
And targets to assassinate and things like that. And then when they'd pass out, they'd whisk them out and bring them back to their room and be like, "Oh, what did you see in your vision?" They're like, "Oh man, I was in heaven and this angel told me to kill this person." Okay, then the gods have spoken to you. Go do your task. And that was kind of how he manipulated people into doing the things that they wanted them to do.
Yeah, that's a crazy story, and I've heard those stories, and I want to be very clear. I'm not saying that's never happened and that doesn't happen at all. I'm saying there's no way that can account for all of what's coming out here. It cannot. And we already know they can implant, full downloads of memories with intuition alongside it and put these people in autonomous experiences, let alone non-autonomous memory downloads. That's already, I think, proven in my presentations here, whatever, if you disagree. But I make a good case for it. I think that accounts for the vast majority of this, especially the SSP stuff. One example is in Tony Rodriguez's book and testimony, he talks about being on Mars on a space station and getting attacked by these giant bug-like insects that cut his arm off and slashed it off. And then he tourniquets it and stops the bleeding enough to survive. And his team is either separated or killed or something. And he's crawling back to his base for like many miles, crawling on his knees and or something, and he gets an arm regenerated for him. And I'm like, that requires being alone and a lot of autonomy and a lot of pain because he says it felt real, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but now, Emma Catherine, she says that they give you these scenarios and these scenes, but whenever you remember them, your mind will recreate it in a way that makes sense and form it into a more cohesive way, which I get a little bit, but this is where it gets funny though, because I said, okay, well, is that coming from exclusively memories of victims? Is this story coming from that? Or is this also coming from whistleblowers who said they were involved with these types of operations and black projects? I said, because every black project seems to have somebody sticking out saying their name, saying I was involved with these. But with how big this operation would have to be for this many people to experience this many things, it would have to be a huge, huge operation. And I can't find, and she didn't even answer that question really. And I couldn't find anybody. I researched for days on it, and I couldn't find anybody saying that they worked for these programs and was an actor or part of the script or whatever. Like I said, I'm not saying no one's ever done it, just not to account for all of these cases. The SSP lore specifically, I don't think is at all from actors. It just doesn't make any sense. When they can already download false memories, why would they waste time with such a high operation with a bunch of money and time and investment required when you can just download it to someone who's open, who isn't covered in the blood of Christ? Like, it's much more easy and accomplishes it much more cleanly. And I said to her, okay, well, have you heard of Vicki Joy Anderson? And I talk about this in the first episode, but I want to remind people because it's important here. She talks about the fabricated room and how sleep paralysis, she believes, is just your astral body being frozen and not your physical body. And they just make a room to look like your real room. But we know it's not real because after enough case studies, there's so many discrepancies in the room being slightly off in detail that it can't be their real room. She decides that based on the testimony and talking to people and her own hundreds of experiences, that sleep paralysis is just the manifestations you see are seen in a dreamlike state, but it feels real because they can make it feel real, like I've said. And they do this to plant disinformation, such as, I don't know if she talks about this, but I do, a story where multiple people have said they've seen gray aliens show up during their sleep paralysis encounters, and not shadow people, but they'll see a gray alien, and it'll look surprised, like, oh no, you caught me, you're not supposed to see me. Like, it'll look like very surprised that you see him. And then it'll press a button, a technological button on its belt, and it will instantly shapeshift into a shadow person. So, if this is a controlled simulation where it's not actually an alien, what message are they trying to convey? They're trying to convey, oh, the spiritual phenomenon I've been harassed with my whole life, it's actually just aliens coming here in my room to scare me, which, by the way, is a huge bad return on investment there for how much work that would take for all the shadow people encounters, which there's, oh my God, like millions of these. A huge amount of work to put in for very little return on investment. But if it's not, and it's a simulation, that's planting to the idea that the phenomena is more technological, more physical, more alien-based, more literal alien-based than we've been told by other people. And it's a form of planting disinformation in these fake memories, just like the MyLab stuff. It's the same concept. It's elaborate, and people can't ever fathom this stuff unless they're being, shared it to it in a presentation, and even then it's hard to understand. but there's a pattern of this. And I said this to her. I said, have you heard of that story? Have you heard of this? Does this make sense to you? If they can do this, then why can't they plant memories in people questioning their secret space program memories who maybe think, oh, I don't know if this is real. And in those people, they might just plant a memory of them waking up in a drugged state in a big studio with props and actors everywhere, and then it'll end and they'll go, oh, that explains all my crazy memories that I didn't really truly believe in. And the people who do believe in it, they never get those memories because they're catering to their individuals. So apparently all these script, actor props memories, Hollywood studios, comes from people remembering them in recovered memories. So if those are planted, that is disinformation planted in these to bring you to that conclusion so that it devoids you from coming to the vision control download concept, which, by the way, they have to cover up because it's their biggest weapon of control. And I'm trying to focus on that heavily because that is their biggest weapon of deception, and they have to make sure you don't find out. So they're planting all these seeds everywhere to diverge you from that conclusion. I hope I'm making sense. I think I covered all of that. I just think it'd be much more easy to heal from these things if people knew they were totally fake. And I talked to Gray Area Monarch about it, and he's a homie, and he works with her. I think they're married or something. But the great people, power couple. And he said he believes me, and he is on my side. And he says more people know about this in the underground of it than you think. And I'm like, really? I've never heard anybody talk about it in interviews, so I thought I was the first one to talk about it in detail. And he's like, no, they don't know all the details you do maybe, but he says some people know they can fabricate full experiences and fake memories, and he's totally about it. And I'm like, well, talk to your wife, bro. Like, you get on the same page.
Straighten her out.
Yeah, because they're angels. I love them. They're just, she's a bit off the mark there, and it's so elaborate. I don't blame her at all for, falling for that disinformation tactic if that's what it truly is. So, but I hope she doesn't hate me. But he's a friend now.
Tell
So
that husband to go and straighten his old lady out and just be like,
as they all
Nacho
should,
Libre,
yeah.
I'm a little concerned right now about your salvation.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. So I'm trying to get the word out because I think will do a lot of good for the, healing type communities who, I'm not saying it's going to be immediately fixed by knowing it's fake, but because they feel so real, but it'll go a long way. I think it'll go a very long way. So I think that's the end of my part 3. There's more in my book. So please buy the book if you want to learn the dirty details that I could not get to today.
Nice, man. Well, dude, I really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me again. I always, I say it every time because I mean it every time, man. I love hanging out with you and talking with you. You're a well-researched dude. We're into the same subjects, and you're funny. That's something that's really lacking in this sphere. And I get told quite often that I be too silly sometimes, and they can't take me seriously. I'm like,
we got to bring the silly people into the fold,
Why
man.
So serious.
Amen. Bro, yeah, I'm the same way. My book is, if anybody isn't aware, my book is filled with inappropriate and often vulgar comedy, unlike a good Christian man, of course. But, I wanted to convert New Agers and Gnostics who love that dirty stuff, and it's too ingrained in my personality to not take advantage of my comedic bone, So I went pretty crazy with it, a little too far at times, but I made it fun and an original book that no one has ever will find anything like it. So, and it's real and hardcore, real, elaborate disinformation, reverse wargaming that I'm doing constantly. It's very, I'm biased. What do I know? But hey, if you want to find my book, Spirit Realm Shenanigans and Unhinged Rant Exposing the Psychic Fabrications of Discarded Dweebs and Nephilim Nitwits, go on Amazon and buy it, or you can buy it directly from me and I'll sign it with some schizo terrible autograph on PayHip on my link tree. Go to my link tree in my bio on my social media. Follow me on X where I get really crazy, or on Instagram if you want to see my concert photography as well and see all the bangers I post. I post a lot of bangers. That is Sethlehem or Sethlehem _ on Instagram. And my link tree is in my bio, and you can find all my podcast appearances. I've done a lot now. I'm on a tour, and my free audiobook is on Spotify and YouTube, full thing. And there's more, but I forgot. That's it. Thank you.
All right, man. Brother, thank you so much. Hey, guys, if you enjoyed it, be sure to check out his stuff. You've seen that book, man. That's got some girth to it. Sit down and geek out, guys. I know you'll enjoy it. But hey, just remember the difference between the known and the unknown. That is the journey. So, good journey, guys.
If the path avoids the cross, it's not the truth. So we steal the fire, not to burn it Hee-haw, hee-haw.